All right, let's go.
Okay, preparing to stream the meeting. Wow, it's slow. Okay, we're now streaming live. We are now recording. And we are good to go.
All right, thank you. So I'll call to order the town council budget meeting for February 13th, 2024. And Noel, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. Jim Jinks,
Here.
Fiona Pearson,
Here.
a quorum is present.
All right, thanks. So we'll do the pledge of allegiance actually at the council meeting,
Perfect.
but thank you for putting that up there. It's a nice picture.
We're out of practice too, so we're ready for that was a practice for the real meeting.
So the first, let's see, 1 through 12 is actually all consent calendar items. Just want to call out, there's obviously some large donations here this month. There always is, but the Cheshire Senior Center Membership Association is donating $3,000 to the Human Services gift account. There's $1,117.59 from the Bowman Corporation to the Human Services gift account. $600 for the 2023 Community Scarecrow Contest to the Human Services gift account. Does that come from, is that donations from the community or is that from people that do the scarecrows? How does that work?
It's from the Scarecrow program. Yeah. Sorry, Sean.
No, I was going to say, yeah, every entry came with an entry fee. I think was it
Right.
$25 or something like that.
Gotcha. Pat McKinley donated $50 to Human Services gift account. We have Sharon Ort in memory of Carol Brown, $50 Human Services gift account. Marty Coburn's monthly debit. Acceptance in $2,538 from the Cheshire Rotary Club to Human Services gift account. And $100 for Jill Rochford to the Police Department gift account. Do we want to have, is there any discussion on the on item number 11, the fire apparatus grant program?
Overview of that one. So this is a reimbursement grant that Jack Kasner was made aware of. We were already doing some work remediating PFAS chemicals or material from some older equipment that we have. And there were two apparatus that were being remediated to the tune of, I think it's $13,200. And there's a state program for reimbursement to communities making those expenditures. So we don't technically need a approval for the appropriation. We're paying for that and this work has actually been completed a couple of weeks ago. But we do need your authorization to apply for the grant for reimbursement for the funds that we spent remediating the PFAS from those two vehicles.
So is this kind of the final amount of PFAS as far as the foaming liquid, or is there more to be done?
That's a question for certainty. I want to clarify with Chief Kasner. I know this takes care of these two apparatus, and I believe when I talked to him last, that was the bulk of what we had remaining. But I will confirm with him. And again, as you know, this is an emerging issue, and
right.
I know we've been certainly evaluating our both our apparatus and our gear and our equipment, making sure everything is safe for our firefighters, and making sure that any of these chemicals have been removed and remediated. So I will confirm with Jack and get back to you if this represents the conclusion of the program, or if there's still more to come. I'll let you know.
Yeah, just a curiosity more than anything. Okay, Fiona, since it's only the two of us, so do you want to move this
consent calendar? Yes.
I second. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. for those present. So item 13, excuse me, authorization to apply for 2024 CT Deep Trails Grant Program for Mixville and acceptance and appropriation of said grant and 20% match. So this is the funds for the boardwalk in Mixville, correct?
That's correct, right? So for the Mixville Master Plan, this funding, as you'll see from the resolution, actually increases the prior appropriation that we passed in fiscal 23's capital budget for Mixville and open space improvements, because this will now allow us to do the designed connection boardwalk and sidewalks connectivity within Mixville, improving ADA access and also just walkability and access to the beach area and also up to the pavilion area where there's currently no sidewalks, just that driveway road from the general parking area closer to the road up to the pavilion. So this will, the grant requires a 20% match, but remember we passed $150,000 for this project overall for improvements to Mixville Park. So the $65,000 that is the 20% match that comes out of the $150,000 that we previously approved in fiscal 23. So the overall project would now be $410,000 with that additional funding of $260,000 from the state if we're successful in receiving this. We think this project checks a lot of boxes. I think Andrew may be on to speak to this a little later, but certainly the inclusion of not only access to trails and open space, but the ADA accessibility, the van accessible parking that's part of this program. I think it all checks a lot of boxes that that DEEP will be happy to see. And we're optimistic that we can receive this funding. And it's part of, again, a very exciting upgrade to Mixville Park overall that I know I think there's a map in there of the master plan, the additional parking, the ice rink, the relocation of the beach volleyball area, and just a lot of great improvements to our really premier passive recreation park that we have in Cheshire.
Yeah, so it creates a full loop more or less of kind of accessibility throughout the park more, at least around the central part of the park.
Right, that was part of the original design, right? Some connectivity from, in a loop fashion there, and again, also accessibility to the beach area. Again, something that's hard to do from an ADA standpoint often, but boardwalk is a great solution to get folks who may have some accessibility challenges down there, and also just a very pleasant and visually appealing way to delineate between the grass area and the sand area that is the beach at Mixville.
Yeah, I'll repeat this later, but I know that the Parks and Rec folks were really excited about this plan, and to be able to use this grant to supplement some of those funds, I think is fabulous. So thank you for pursuing that. So I make a motion to approve authorization to apply for this 2024 Connecticut Deep Grant Trails Program for Mixville.
Great. A second. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Okay. Next item is 14, authorization to apply for round 19 bar planning grant program and appropriation of the 10% match for said grant.
All right, so again, Andrew will be speaking about this one a little more at during the town council meeting, but
Right.
Again, it's the same program that we applied to previously for the Brownfield area remediation planning grant. And this again is the effort that we're embarking on for the West Main Street corridor and the master planning. So this additional funding, the town would put up to $10,000 out of existing capital planning funds that we have previously approved. So we'd be applying for $90,000, total project of $100,000, again, for additional hiring of professionals and feasibility planning, environmental studies, and other items that need to take place as part of the overall effort with respect to the West Main Street area associated with the bar planning grant previously applied for and received.
Pretty straightforward. Okay.
Make a motion for authorization to apply for round 19 bar planning grant program.
Thank you. I second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Jim, I
Yes.
just want to let you know that we have one or two members from the public who are waiting to get in, and I will need to let them in, just so you're aware.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So next item is 15, review of recommendations for Economic Development Commission for expenditure of $400,000 funding received from State Bond Commission. Sounds like Andrew's gonna have a busy night tonight.
You will. We try to put these all in order for him. At least he can stay on camera for a while. But yes, this one, again, you'll have a more formal presentation later, but you saw the memo from Andrew in your packet. As discussed at the prior council meeting, we agreed that the Economic Development Commission would review this $400,000 state funding that we received, make recommendations, and that the council would then review those at a subsequent meeting, which is this meeting. You'll see the proposal for the 400,000 includes $85,000 for traffic and utility analysis of West Main Street focus area, $305,000 for enhancements, including surface parking, facade signage program, planters, street furniture, installing electrical lighting, wayfinding signage, general landscaping, and district welcome signage. And then finally, a new business resource center for $10,000 at the Cheshire Chamber of Commerce, as proposed in the memo from Andrew from the Economic Development Commission.
Right. Yeah, like you said, we've talked about this at least once or twice now, so I'm sure we'll go into greater detail later on, but Fiona, do you want to move this?
Yep, sure. A move to review recommendations from the Economic Development Commission for expenditure of $400,000.
Thanks. I second. All those in favor? Aye. And next item is 16, approval of modification to program income reuse plan and reallocation of 75,000 from the CDBG Housing Rehab Program income account to the Cheshire Housing Authority to be used for shortfalls with the Beachport project.
Sorry, I was muted there.
Right.
Again, a project related to the Small Cities Grant. And again, this is the program that both the town has used for the housing rehab program, but also in other years, the Housing Authority has applied for those funds. And in this case, they've previously and have been undergoing the project of a large project for rehabilitation of a number of units and improvements to the Beachport Rumber Road area and facility. In this case, they are in need of some additional funding to close the gap in the project due to some of the costs they've experienced. Or the option that's being pursued and recommended here is using the program income funds that the town of Cheshire has from the housing rehab program, which are now about $100,000, which is more than enough for the program to sustain in its current fashion. So the request here is for $75,000 of that program income, which ultimately is overall part of that small cities program and effort to be transferred over for the Housing Authority to close the project or to put towards the project that they've been working on with their small cities grant. So again, something I believe both Andrew and Ann Belcher, I believe, will also be on the call if she has I believe she was contacted to get onto the Zoom as well. So I know they'll be maybe making the request formally, but you should have their letter in your packet as well as the resolution.
Yeah, I see that. So just explain to me why is it reallocation? What does that mean exactly in this case? It's funds that we allocated previously that were not used, so we're having to reallocate them.
Yeah, so the way this works, and again, Jim Jessica can jump in if I get any of this incorrect, but the housing rehab program, right, is a no interest loan program for projects for small, maybe a boiler replacement or a roofing project based on income levels for homeowners in town. When that property ultimately sells or conveys, there's a lien placed on the property, and that property that then generates income that pays back that loan, and that goes into a separate account that's called the program income account, and that's what the town of Cheshire has accumulated about $100,000 in. So it's the request is to take that program funding. We're going to keep 25,000 in there, which is enough for those revolving loans to occur. But that's my understanding of why that money's there, and then it'll be generated, and it's an appropriate and acceptable use per HUD to use it for the Housing Authority project as proposed.
Right, okay, now I understand
That,
now.
that's exactly it, Sean.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
that clarification. Yeah. So I move to approve modification to the program income reuse plan and reallocation of 75,000 from the CDBG Housing Rehab Program income account to the Cheshire Housing Authority.
Now, second, all those in favor vote aye, or, all those in favor? Aye, thank you. Next item is the authorization to apply for and acceptance appropriation of 2024 Municipal Historic Documents Preservation Program grant. This is something that
A lot
we
of grants
do on a
on
regular
tonight's
basis,
meeting,
right?
but yeah, this is one we've done many times before. It's a request from the town clerk. And this is for additional document imaging. Yep, this one, as she says in the submission, at least, the grant would cover the cost for volumes 51 back to 1. So anything more on that, Arnett? I know you had this from.
That's it. And there are a couple of other documents that they also want to digitize that are historical. If they are able to complete this particular project back to volume 1, they'll do the additional volumes as well. But this project has been going on for, I don't know, about 8 to 10 years. They've
Right,
been working backwards to get it all digitized. And it's between $7,000 and $8,000 a year generally that the state, we've managed to achieve the state grant. So hopefully we can finish the project.
That's great. All right, so I move authorization to apply for and accept appropriation of the 2024 Municipal Historic Documents Preservation Program grant.
thanks. I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye, thank you. Next item is the appropriation of $48,227.93 in ARPA funding for the town website rebuild with the integration of minutes and agenda management software and bid waiver authorization.
All right, so this is a proposal that
Big
we
news.
had. Yeah, we're very excited to move this project forward. This is the redesign of our website and integration of the agenda management digitization project for electronic packets and minutes and a variety of great features that we're excited to roll out. We've selected Civic Plus and had a number of meetings and planning meetings with them to vet out exactly what we're looking to have for these projects. This was also reviewed and a demonstration was given to the technology study group last week, about 2 weeks ago. And they wholeheartedly recommended pursuing this going forward. As you'll see, the request is to fund the first year, the implementation and first year fees with ARPA dollars, which we need to commit to by December of this year. We have sufficient balance, and I think this is a great use of relatively small amount of the ARPA funds, but to enhance and improve our communication with the community, providing a number of features. We'll touch on more of them a little bit later during the meeting. But we're excited. I know this is a goal of the council to update and improve our website, and again, also to roll out the agenda management software. So it's not going to be a small effort, but we're excited to get started, and that's hence the request for use of ARPA funds to get it funded right away, as opposed to waiting till next budget year, and also a bid waiver to move ahead with Civic Plus is really the gold standard and industry leader in this space, and we were able to get this for a very good price for all of the packaged deal we're getting, as they offer both the agenda software and the website. So we got a lot of discounts in our pricing for that.
So it says website rebuild, but we're really getting an entirely new website, right?
Yeah, rebuild's probably not the right word. It's really an overhaul. But yeah, we're you certainly take some components of your older website, certainly some documents and some of the structure in terms of obviously our departments and department pages and permissions. But no, the whole thing is on a whole entirely different hosted platform. Not to be confused with a similar sounding name of our former one, or soon to be former one, Civic Live, but now we'll be going to Civic Plus. And again, they're by far the industry leader across municipalities in the country, across the country.
And Sean, I'll add that we had about 1.3 million left in our ARPA funds before this.
Correct.
Before this, yeah. Did they give you an idea of when they would have the website up and kind of unveiled for us, or?
Yeah, it's about anywhere from a 9 to 12 month process. We are trying to do both this and the agenda management system. The goal is to get that kind of launched a little sooner. I know Noelle is on the call and she's going to be leading point on a lot of this, so she can feel free to jump in if I have any of that wrong. But I believe 9 months was the target window. It just depends on how complicated some of the build out is, and it depends, of course, on us as the client to make sure we're responsive and getting all of our documents to them in a timely fashion, and our feedback on how we want our various department web pages to work. I don't need to tell you guys, but a municipal website is a very complicated animal because it represents 14 or 15 distinct departments with a variety of needs and client bases and public facing components. So it's not a small task, but it takes a lot of folks working together. And again, Noelle's going to be stepping up to help lead that charge and coordinate through this office going forward.
Yeah, it's certainly a worthwhile project. So looking forward to seeing that move forward.
Yeah. All right, move to appropriate for $48,227.93 in ARPA funding for the town website rebuild with integration of minutes and agenda management software and bid waiver authorization.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, item 19, approval of Bartlam Park Phase 1 construction phase services contract amendment with Weston and Sampson.
All right, so this is, if you recall, when we first signed on with Weston and Weston and Sampson has helped us from the very beginning of the Bartlam South project with respect to the initial conceptual design through to final design. And then most recently, about 9 months ago, we approved, or we had an 18-month construction window, and we're contracting with them for construction administration services. At the time we decided to negotiate just the first 9 months of that, knowing that's going to be the busiest time. And then we could kind of reevaluate where we were from a budget standpoint and hopefully save a little bit of money, and then kind of negotiate and sign the second half of the deal, 9 months to remain in the project. And that's exactly what we did. And ultimately, compared to the initial pricing that they gave us of about $360,000, that'll result in about $100,000 worth of savings. As we signed the first contract for about $160,000 and this one for about $100,000. So it was a good move. Credit to everybody here, I know, including John Malone, who's on the call, who really helped guide us through this process. And it ultimately saved us a lot of money. They've been great to work with, but we also got it at a good price for the taxpayer. And I think that's a win-win. And this will engage them for the remainder of the project through to completion. And we would look for your support for this tonight.
Yeah, that's great. I don't have any questions on that at all. So, Fiona, do you have any questions on that?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, John Malone, for helping guide us through that process. Approval of Bartlam, I move to approve Bartlam Park Phase 1 construction phase services contract amendment with Weston and Sampson.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Our final item, I guess second to last item anyway, public hearing waiver and bid waiver for emergency repair work to South Main Street sewer break and authorization of emergency appropriation.
Yeah, so this one related to the sewer break that occurred back in the middle of January down on South Main Street. Of course, that was an emergent item and also one that affects public health and public safety. It is appropriate to utilize the section of our charter, section 7-5, allowing for an emergency appropriation. So this is an emergency appropriation and bid waiver. That work had to start as soon as the call kind of came in at 2 a.m. on I believe a Sunday night or Sunday early morning. La Rosa Construction was the company that came in to do the emergency repair work. As the council knows, it took a little bit of time. It was a very complicated job. Took the better part of 2 weeks and a lot of disruption down there to get this project done. So the recommendation here, in order to pay those bills, we don't have the final tally, but that's an appropriation of $475,000 is the upper limit of what we believe this will cost based on where the initial estimates were. from the engineering department. And more than initial estimates, but they've gone back and forth a number of times to make sure they're vetting out everything that was submitted and invoiced. But we do need to make an appropriation to pay for that. The recommendation is to make this out of the fund balance for the WPCD, which exists at about I don't have it in front of me, 1.2, $1.3 million. So it's a substantial amount of the fund balance. We are still pursuing, other avenues, whether it's insurance and or there was a issue with a RWA water line adjacent to the sewer that's being evaluated as possible cause of the break for our line. So there could be ultimately a settlement or insurance reimbursement of this down the line. That's very too early to know for sure. But one way or the other, we do need to make this appropriation and therefore increase the WPCD's budget by that amount for the current year to pay for the repair. So that's the request.
Sean, the fund balance at June 30th, 23 was 1.158 million on a budgetary basis.
That's right. Thank you.
Well, I think we can all be grateful that our charter allows for not convening a 4 a.m. meeting before we go forward with emergency repairs. So that's good.
Yeah, this is definitely an appropriate use.
Right, right.
All right, I make a motion for public hearing waiver and bid waiver for emergency repair work to South Main Street sewer break and authorization of emergency appropriation.
Thank you, and I second that. All those in favor? Aye. And I think that's all we have. Just a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second.
Can I interject?
Oh,
I thought your meeting started at 7.
that's the council meeting. We're just finishing up a budget meeting right now, actually.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. So we need a vote to adjourn, right? All those in favor? Aye. All right, and we're done.
I'm going to log off and log on as my other account, hoping I can actually have access here. So if you don't see me for a minute, that's where I am.
All right, thanks.
We'll just give it a couple more minutes. I know we're waiting for Tricia, but we're waiting for Sean to get back on as well. So just bear with us.
Oh, I am here, Peter. I think we just let Tricia in, so I think we're good.
Okay. Jim, as soon as you're all set, jump back on camera and we'll get started. I just want to make sure at least the council people are on. There you go.
Yep. I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Sean, is Noel or Arnett doing the roll?
Noelle is on. I think she just she doesn't have her camera, but she has a unmute. She'll
Okay.
unmute and she the roll.
That's fine.
I'm here.
So we'll call the meeting of Tuesday, February 13th to order. Back to virtually. I was hoping that we'd never have to see the small little screens again, but here we are. For some of you, this is very new. It's not a lot of fun, but bear with us and we will get through this. With that, if Noel, if you would please call the roll.
Peter Talbot,
Here.
Jim Jenks,
Here.
Dina Allard,
Here.
Patricia Kramer,
Here.
Fiona Pearson,
Here.
Don Walsh, Greg Wolf,
Here.
and Dave Elber.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Arnett, thank you for putting up the flag. Please join me, stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brings us to item 3, public communications. We are going to once again postpone the recognition of Sandy Pavano, Sylvia Nichols, and David Borrowy. We want to have them in person and we'll shoot for March. Likewise, for item B, the proclamation for the Cheshire High School hockey team's 50th season. We hope to actually see the coach and the captains at our March meeting, and the way we're going, hopefully we'll be honoring them for a state championship at the same time we recognize their 50th season, the way we're going. So with that, recording, I have a proclamation for Scouting Recognition Day. Whereas the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts of America are the world's largest organizations dedicated to helping girls and boys everywhere build character, gain skills for success in the real world, and develop conviction about their own potential and self-worth, which will serve them all their lives. And whereas Scouting has helped millions of young people to confront difficult situations and make reasonable decisions. And whereas Scouting instills civic values and virtue in young people, which are integral with the ideals, morals, and principles which America embodies. And whereas Scouting in Cheshire has contributed to the beautification of our town in the form of numerous projects which enrich the appearance and quality of life in Cheshire. Now, therefore, I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chair of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all the citizens of Cheshire, by this proclamation, do hereby recognize Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, as Scouting Day and acknowledge the Scouting organizations and all their young participants and volunteers. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 13th day of February, 2024. With that, I know there's Mr. Walsh has joined us, and we'll do public comment, and then we'll I think we'll add another member to the council. So any members of the public, if you would raise your hand and we can have you unmuted. Yes, sir. Phil.
Yes, as just a topic I'd like to bring up to the town council, if you don't mind.
Sure.
By the way, I'm a 40-year Cheshire resident. It's a great town, great place to grow up. And you guys do a great job running the town. My concern, I think that Cheshire Town Council would be hard pressed to find a single Cheshire homeowner that looks forward to a solicitor ringing their bell while it's dark outside. And yet the town of Cheshire has a sales and solicitation ordinance which allows this to happen. I've been told that if you don't wish for this to happen, I simply need to stick a sign on my lawn that says, "No peddlers, no solicitors." Of course, no one wants to put a sign like that on their property. And of course, even if they did, a solicitor coming up to your house in the dark isn't even going to see the sign. So it's really kind of ridiculous. What I'm specifically asking for is a change in the time window that they are allowed to solicit. The cutoff time is currently 7 p.m. And of course, we all know it gets pretty dark in Connecticut in the winter, well before 7 p.m. To me, I just think this is a no-brainer. So I'm please asking to revise that 7 p.m. solicitation window so that we're not encountering what Frank Sinatra might not have had in mind when he wrote Strangers in the Night.
Bill, would you do me a favor and just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. It's Phil Atiyeh. I'll spell that for you. It's Atiyeh. And my address is 186 North Rolling Acres Road.
Bill, thank you. We'll take a look at that. We can certainly add that to our ordinance committee to take a look at, and it certainly seems appropriate that, you know, we kind of change the time based on daylight savings time and take into account sunset. So I appreciate your comments tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you for looking into it. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Veliber, would you like to add another member to our council?
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I would like to make a motion to nominate John Mylone to fill the vacancy of Tim Slocum for the town council.
I would like to second that.
All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion carries unanimously 8-0. And Mr. Mylone, welcome. Welcome back, as a matter of fact.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
I know you were talked about favorably just moments ago during the budget committee meeting as well. And John, we're happy to have you back. So yes, Mr. Veliber.
Just Mr. And just as a recommendation, we would wholly recommend that suggest that you fill the vacancies on the various committees and liaisons that were left by Tim Slocum with John Mylone.
We will have John slide onto budget. I'll take a look at the other ones, but yes, anything that Mr. Slocum had previously had is now Mr. Mylone's.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to show you. I think it's planning is the second one.
Thank you and welcome, John. I know you'll probably recuse yourself unless you had a chance to watch our meeting of January 16th, but we're going to call for the approval of the minutes of our January 16th meeting.
Hey, Peter, before you go forward, just a
Sure.
Point of order. Can I participate before I'm sworn in some way?
Oh, I'm absolutely right, John. Thank you very much. So I will turn it over to Ms. Talbot, who will virtually swear you in.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you swear at me, John. Okay. You solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Connecticut, so long as you continue to be a citizen thereof, and faithfully discharge according to law your duties as a member of the Cheshire Town Council to the best of your abilities, so help you God. Okay, congratulations, you are official. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Congratulations, Sean. and
Congratulations,
thank you
John.
for- Thank you for the quick pickup too.
I owe you a few, Peter.
Only for microphone turning on, Jen. So item 4 is now the approval of the minutes for the January 16th Town Council meeting. If I can have someone move that.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you, David. All in favor, signify
Aye.
by raising your hand. Motion passes 8-0, 801 with Mr. Mylone abstaining. Mr. Jenks, the consent calendar, please.
Sure, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-1, consent calendar for February 13th, 2024. Be it resolved that the town council approves the consent calendar for February 13th, 2024 as follows. Items A through J.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. All in favor of the consent calendar, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. There are no items removed from consent. Old business. It is time for Mr. Gussenberg. Would you please give us an update on where our schools stand at the present time?
I would be glad to. We're moving along well. The design development plans for both of the schools are complete. They've now been sent out to our estimators. We expect to have the estimates on the North End School for our meeting a week from Thursday, and then 2 weeks after that for the Norton School. Keeping our fingers crossed that those estimations come in showing that we're right on budget. As you know, we came in over budget at the end of schematic design and had to go through and come up with about $10 million in reductions at each school at that time. So we're hoping that we're all set now. The next step after that would be the approval of those documents and then moving on to the actual construction documents. We continue to be on schedule and getting out to bid next fall, with construction to begin December 24, January 25. Some site work is scheduled to take place in the summer of 2024. And we're now looking at some early bidding of certain items such as steel work and some of the larger pieces of equipment so that we can get those moving right away. We're in the process of presenting the plans for the North End School and Norton to Inland Wetlands. The North End School was approved by Inland Wetlands already. Norton School has had 2 meetings with Inland Wetlands, the last one a public hearing, and that's been continued. So we're hopeful that that will be approved probably at their very next meeting. Scheduled to present plans for the North End School and Norton to P&Z. We actually presented the second presentation of P&Z for the North End School was last night, which went very well. I think we're in excellent shape there. And the Norton will be on March 11th. We already have a schedule for the state of Connecticut to go over our design development phase. And that's set up for the North End School on March 6th and the Norton School on March 20th. And that's where we are at the moment. As I said, pretty much right on schedule. So be glad to answer any questions that people may have.
Questions for Mr. Gussenberg? Mr. Velaber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rich, I appreciate your comments that you feel that you're now right on schedule. I guess I'm a little concerned because I watched some of that first planning and zoning meeting, and I heard from a lot of planning and zoning commissioners about how kind of why I felt that it appeared how sort of, I want to say, unprepared our contact was with this, that they weren't again, and I'd asked you at the previous meeting, did you feel that I think it's, were working with the planning and zoning department, and you felt that they were, but apparently when they got to that first planning and zoning meeting, they had just submitted plans. They were working off plans that hadn't even been submitted yet, or were just submitted to the council, to the planning and zoning committee. I guess I'm a little concerned about, hopefully now that they're back on track, but it seemed like they weren't really prepared for that first planning and zoning meeting, and it showed, and the planning and zoning commissioners were not very happy with the presentation they were given. So I'm hoping going forward that they're going to be a little bit more prepared and more in line with what the planning and zoning commission is asking of them and requesting of them, so that we don't have any more last minute concerns with the presentation that they're giving.
A fair comment. There were obviously some communication issues. I think some differences of opinion as to how complete the plans were and when they were submitted. But the bottom line is we sat down right after that meeting, made sure that everything was on track. Tecton, who was our main architect, took a much greater lead in making sure that everything was all set. And I urge you to take a look at last night's meeting, which went very, very smoothly. All the plans were absolutely stellar, no problems. Commissioners, really the only issues that came up last night is how much sidewalk the town of Cheshire should put in around the school. Other than that, they were very pleased with everything that we had presented. So I think, there were some lessons learned there. They did go through very carefully, the architects, and noted each of the issues that had come up at the first meeting, and started off last night by going through point by point by point each of those to make sure that everything was heard, and that when possible, very specific adjustments have been made. So I think we're in much better shape. Tecton was not pleased with that first meeting either. And that's why, as I said, they stepped in and took a much greater role in the one last night.
Thank you, because my concern obviously is we have a very tight time frame, and we got to make sure these things keep moving forward. And obviously, we don't want to have any situations where planning and zoning is getting upset with what's being presented to them, and possibly either having to hold up approvals or make forced changes at the end. So thank you for that.
I agree with you. We're all on the same team. We want to move this thing. We want to keep it on track and keep it on budget.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Gussenberg? Mr. Jinks?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Hey, Rich. I haven't seen last night's presentation yet, so I was wondering about the sidewalks and what the current kind of plan is for the sidewalks around the schools.
Well, what the architects did is, and actually we had talked with Sean about this earlier too, is we took a look and said, all right, if you have people in that area walking to school, what would be the logical way in which they would walk? So you've got people coming from the Courier Woods area. There is some sidewalks that come up Marion, or not up Jarvis, along there. So we said, all right, we want to enhance that. And based on the input that we had gotten from the police, it was recommended that we run a sidewalk from where our preschool part of the building is out to Jarvis and then up to the corner of Marion. So that would be one way where people coming from that corner of Marion and Jarvis or the Courier Woods area could come walk to the school or bike to the school. The other side is going north up Marion. And what we did was to add a sidewalk, which is going up now our bus drive, so that you could go from the school or down to the school along a sidewalk that would go there, that would go up to the property, and then would go right to the end of our property to the north of the school. Vince Massiano had taken a look at all of the students who lived in that area and said, okay, based on where the sidewalks are right now, here's the students that potentially could walk to school, but we would really want to do a study. This is Vince's video right here, or not video, but a graphic that he did. And so he said, you know, this area where it says 29 and 4, those are students that potentially could walk to school right now if it was deemed safe. The other numbers that are there are if, you know, we extended sidewalks, if the town chose to extend sidewalks at some date, how many students might potentially be able to walk to school. Both Vince and Dr. Solon got up and made a promise to planning and zoning that without a study, without sidewalks there, that we would be definitely providing bus transportation for those students. Since Marion is a fairly busy road, not busy, but more busy than we would want students walking along that road. So it was just, you know, future planning, and P&Z clearly was asking down the line what kind of sidewalks the town might decide to add to what the school is going to be putting in.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just quickly, sorry, didn't mean to step on you there, Jim. I just wanted to add, and I wanted to share that image because I think this is, again, something we've been talking about really for the better part of the last 2 years. And that something is certainly for the Jarvis, we have engineering currently working on the Jarvis Street sidewalk design, and something you'll see, you know, in the capital budget next month as a proposal. Marion, I think, takes a little more conversation and consideration because that's a long run. It's a very different road. And that's a long run to sort of less houses out towards past Nodder and Sierra Court versus the pickup you have towards Moss Farms, Stroller Court in that area. So a conversation that I think will be appropriate for budget in the next couple of months. And again, we have it. I know the council has it very much on their radar. I want to make sure that everyone knows that, the public and planning and zoning as well. And our hope would be to, you know, approve, if we do approve sidewalks upon Jarvis, for instance, to have that construction done in a timely fashion. So it's done before the school is done in a couple of years. So we have time compared to building a school. Building a sidewalk is not as complicated, but we just need to get the funding in place and make the decisions for exactly where we want them to go. So I just wanted to add that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Right now, there is a very small area between the exit for Courier Woods on Jarvis and where the sidewalk is. It's a small area, but I know planning and zoning people said that they were not comfortable with walkers even with that small open area. They would want that completed. So, you know, at the moment, I think that we would most likely be busing all the students unless there were some changes made to some of that. But that's up to the school system to look at their policies and makes decisions.
Mr. Jenks, are you all set?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
Mr.
Rich.
Walsh? Go ahead, Mr. Walsh.
There we go.
Sorry,
There you
I'm new
are.
to this. I'm new to this Zoom thing. I think forgot how to use it. Just a quick question. I know did we not discuss this last year during capital budget that we did put like 300,000 into the capital budget for sidewalks around the school, I thought. And is the cost of the schools include the sidewalks, or we're redoing this sidewalks separate in a capital budget thing?
I can take that if you want, Rich. But yes, Don, we approved $300,000 for sidewalk extensions. They were non-specific, but we did have a priority list that we discussed last year. You'll recall, you know, the part of Route 10 where Hillside Village is another area that we're looking to close the gap to a safe crossing for the Stop and Shop Plaza. But we, we don't have the cost estimates yet for what Jarvis would, again, engineering department's working on that right now. It may be we can use some of that funding. We talked last year about kind of restoring and having an annual recurrence of sidewalk extension funds, because historically we've only approved, other than specific sidewalk projects, we've approved somewhere on the order of about $200,000 maybe every other year for sidewalk maintenance projects, and that's replacing 40 and 50-year-old sidewalks and unsafe those that are in disrepair or whatnot. So again, we did have that conversation last year, and again, that's what I was referencing in terms of the Jarvis Street extension. That's an area that is and remains a high priority, especially given the now certain design around where the school is going to be placed. But obviously, we weren't going to embark on constructing them until we knew exactly where it would be oriented and whatnot. To your second point, any sidewalk off of the property, and yes, it's all the town, ultimately the town's right of way, but the town project, only the enhancements that are made or the project costs that are associated with the property itself out of the town's right of way are reimbursable under the grant for the school construction. So, and also planning and zoning can't require offsite improvements for any application, whether it's the town or not. So it can't be associated specifically with this project from a project cost standpoint or funding for reimbursement purposes. But again, it goes hand in hand because obviously we are the town constructing the school, and we are the town that would construct the sidewalks in the right of way on Jarvis and or Marion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gussenberg? Seeing none. Rich, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
You too. Mr. Kimball, an update on Bartlam Park South, please.
Sure, thank you. Just a brief update, although if you've driven by, you've seen, other than today, last couple of weeks with the improved weather, they've been able to do some work, certainly on the town green area. That's the furthest south portion, at least along Route 10 of the property there. I actually do have a little show and tell briefly, take advantage of Zoom here, if you'll indulge me, just for some aerial photos from last week. If we had taken them today, they would obviously look a lot different. Do you see a photo now?
Yep.
Of the town green, hopefully. Okay. I'm going to see if I could advance this. If I can't, I'm not sure if it'll let me or not. Oh, there you go. Is it changing on your screen too, hopefully?
Yes.
All right, there's a little bit of a lag, but these are just a few photos that we had from a drone last week. You'll see the area of the Great Lawn under construction. Oh, it's quite a lag. There we go. Again, now we're looking northbound. This is the area where you'll see where the path kind of comes around to that hill with the tree in the foreground here. That's the area proposed for the Veterans Memorial that we'll be discussing further in the future, along with the Veterans Memorial Committee to be formed. You'll see the Great Lawn here, the work that if you look closely along the path, you can start to see the Great Lawn taking shape. And you'll also see those little gray cylinders are the bases for the lamp posts that are encircling the Great Lawn. And all of the necessary conduit, as you can see, is being run there. If you look really closely, you'll see the gray pipes of the conduit as they're working on the electrical now. This is again looking from the pool, kind of hovering probably above the pool parking lot right now, back towards the Great Lawn. And if I just go a couple more pictures here, here is the town green area that we added as a change order to the project. That site work is being done now for the clearing and grading of that area, the kind of picnic grove in and amongst the trees. The path and the lighting was always included in the project, but this now has what will be an irrigated and a very nice passive recreation area, picnic tables and the like in the kind of town green picnic grove area off the side of the Great Lawn. And you'll see the parking. They were able to do some additional work and complete the sidewalks in anticipation of paving the additional parking on the south of the parking area there. So that's probably enough show and tell for right now. But there were some updated pictures, obviously with the recent weather that probably slowed things down a little bit. We are finalizing the design for the pavilion, waiting on final construction documents for the pavilion that was spec'd in the project. You'll working through the only other item that right now we're on schedule. The only item they did raise is a potential. They haven't heard from Eversource one way or the other. But historically, Eversource, we've heard this before on other projects, transformers, switchgear type issues can present lead time problems. So far, they said we appear to be on track. They haven't heard otherwise, but that's one area that, we're monitoring closely for the electrical that will be based at the bathroom area, but also obviously feeds the entire property. And somewhat related to that, we've been getting requests, understandably, for use of that beautiful turf field. We are working through both with Attorney D'Onofrio and the insurance company and Dorita, who's been very great to work with. Dorita's the construction company doing the project. We have an initial design for possible moving of the construction fence to allow for limited access to the turf field area. Again, we're still exploring it, nothing final yet. We need a lot of sign-offs from building official and insurance and everything, but it remains an active construction site. So a reminder of the public, it's not open now. We've had some folks try to get on and use the new turf field, but it's currently the property under the management of the construction company right now. But we are hoping to have that ready and available this spring and summer. It wouldn't be for night until the lights and the electrical installation is complete, of course, but for some of the user groups that have been looking to use the turf field, understandably, we're doing everything we can to get it ready and come up with a solution there. So other than that, Mr. Chair, I think that completes the Bartlett South report for this month.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Kimball? Mr. Malone?
I haven't been connected for a little while, Sean. I'm just curious how we doing on budget.
We're doing good. We're still and helpful. We were carrying a little bit of a higher number on the construction admin number, so this helps a little bit with the new contract we have proposed here in the end of tonight's meeting or towards the end of the new business items. But we do still have about, I could pull it up, I think it's about $200,000 of contingency still remaining in the project. So I think we're doing okay. There was a little bit of a potential submission for a different vendor for the pavilion, but they backed off back to the original design. They weren't getting a response from the vendor initially. So we were worried that might come with some added costs, but they were back to the original pavilion company that we designed the original plans around. So
we had a reasonable amount of excess funds still available. Where did they go to? Anything specific, Sean, or were there overages that were large? Or
yeah, we've approved, I think it's about 6 change orders along the way. And one being that town green area was, I think, one of the last ones, but I can certainly circulate. I'll share with the council the spreadsheet that I kind of maintain as an overall project budget. And you can see kind of some of the recent approvals in there. And other than that, what builds into the contingency we still have available.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Other questions for Mr. Kimball? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Item A is the call for a public hearing for March 19th, 2024 for the fiscal year 24-25 general operating budget, Water Pollution Control Department Fund operating budget, and the Community Pool Fund operating budget. Resolution is, be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 021324-2, be it resolved that the Town Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, in Council Chambers, Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider the proposed general fund operating budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, the proposed Water Pollution Control Department Fund operating budget for fiscal year 2024-25, and the Community Pool Fund operating budget for fiscal year 2024-25. Be it further resolved that the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearings to be posted and published according to law.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. All those in favor, please raise your hand. We are unanimous, 9-0. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, is that a different night than our regular meeting? It's going to be its own public hearing.
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
thank you.
Which brings us to item B, the appointment of a poet laureate. And I see that Ms. Mottola is on with us tonight. And I will turn it over to Mr. Wolf for the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 021324-3. Be it resolved that pursuant to Town Council Resolution number 101023-8, as attached at the guidelines of the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, the Town Council appoints Patricia Mottola of 390 Maple Avenue as the Town of Cheshire Poet Laureate for the term from present to December 31st, 2025.
Thank you.
We have a motion.
Second.
Fiona, Ms. Pearson with the second. Discussion. Ms. Pearson.
I just wanted to thank Pat for her patience. And I did want to highlight that Cheshire having a poet laureate does fulfill one of the sustainable CT action items in arts and community section. So Pat, you have served this community for quite some time, and we look forward to working with you in this continued way in an official manner in the town of Cheshire.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Pat.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations, Pat. I just have a quick question about the role of what, who determines that when the poet laureate is going to be used, and how she will be used during public functions, I guess. I'm assuming this is what it is for. So if you could somebody just fill me in on how it works.
Well, I know it's part of state statute, so there's probably guidelines. We have other people that serve in capacity along that line. So I see Sean is busy. Are you digging, or you're looking for something else? Yeah.
I was looking at a different thing, but I'm certainly happy to.
No, that's fine. Pat, are you aware of what the
Yeah, yes, for sure. If you all would like to look up the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate and see all of the things that poet laureates do. There are many, including being present for town events that would like to have a poem read about the event and about Cheshire, and bringing poetry to the public in so many ways, putting on workshops, readings, open mics, working with high school students. The list goes on and on and on. So if you do access the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate, you can see all of the things that we do and more. It depends on the individual person, me, and other poet laureates of their town, what their pet projects would be. And I hope that's answered your question a little bit.
Well, it has a little bit. I just like to know kind of what we're voting for. I understand you're a poet, and I appreciate that. But, I don't know how much time you need to write a poem. If we're having a public event and we need a poem, do you need a week, 2 weeks, 10 minutes? I'm not sure. So I think to be fair to you, there should be some guidelines as to what kind of time frame you will need versus, how we're going to use you for public events.
I'll let others
Mr. Chairman,
speak.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
If
I'll
I
go
could
to
just,
Mr.
I think it
Kimball,
might be-
and I know Mr. Jenks wants to weigh in as well. So, Mr. Kimball.
Sure, we may be saying the same thing. I just want to point out in the resolution that established the poet laureate position that the council passed back in October. It did outline a few, I think, key points, and one that I think speaks to Mr. Walsh's question is soon after appointment, the poet laureate will present to the town council a plan for local poetry and literary activities during their 2-year term for council's approval. So one of the first things that Pat would be asked to do, I think, is present that plan back to the council as to maybe just what you're saying, Don, about what types of events and what kind of lead time. And I think those are key points that might address some of your concerns. And then there's a few other bullets under that resolution that kind of outline, I think, some of the parameters that the town of Cheshire was considering in establishing the position.
All right, thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Mr. Jenks.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to point to as well, Sean, but Sean did it better than I would have otherwise. But I also just want to say congratulations, Pat, and I look forward to your programming and your proposal.
Thank you.
Anything else for discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Vote is unanimous. Pat, congratulations officially.
Thank you.
And would you like to say anything or read us a poem?
Oh my gosh, I'm not prepared to read a poem, but
No, I was kidding.
no, I would like to say something. I hope that all of you will attend the remarkable events that I'm going to be putting on. They'll be open to the public, Cheshire residents and others. And I really, really hope that you'll attend. And that's the only way you can understand how remarkable and how important poetry is. And our community will now be represented all over the state in the coalition of town poet laureates. So thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to seeing your plan in the coming months. So thank you. Moving on to item C is the adoption of the town manager's goals and objectives. Ms. Kramer.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021-324-4. Be it resolved that the town council approves the town manager's 2024 goals and objectives as presented and attached.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Jenks. Thank you, Mr. Jenks. So this was a lengthy process. We actually, the personnel committee, the former town council's personnel committee kind of shifted things, and this will fall under the new schedule. So we will try to approve the town manager's goals and objectives in the January timeframe going forward. We're a little bit past that this time. Sean, would you just give us kind of some highlights and tell us where some of the major changes were based on feedback of our goals and objectives meeting? And then we'll have some further discussion.
All right, perfect. And if it's all right, I will share my screen too, once again, for folks at home to kind of follow along. Let's see if I can do this successfully. There we go.
Yep.
Does everyone see that? All right. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as discussed, I think we had a very robust discussion at our committee meeting to review the goals and objectives, and some of these are recurring from year to year, as we've said before, but some are brand new or are kind of new iterations of some of the prior next steps and some of the objectives that we've had over the last couple of years. So I think it's good to start from a summary standpoint. The major categories of economic development, finance, public safety, recreation, education, and town operations, customer service and communications have remained, but the introduction of a new category, goal number 7 here, which we tried to consolidate a lot of the comments from the last meeting and grouped them, so to speak, around the areas of sustainability, transportation, and energy. The goal sort of mission statement being explore practices that advance sustainability of the environment in our community, pursue proven waste materials management and energy use programs and policies, and investigate enhancements to community mobility and transportation options considering the value and cost effectiveness of implementation. And I'll get to those objectives that we kind of gleaned from the last discussion there in a minute. But again, most of these, just some of the highlights of those that we went through at the last meeting. Again, I won't go through all of them, but the economic development ones are largely the same, just sort of updated, consolidated as we discussed at the last meeting. for instance, the Manufacturers Roundtable and business, continuing the business appreciation, no longer its own item, merged with the outreach to local businesses, which I thought was a great edit. We, of course, discussed the DOT parcel conveyance and then the West Main Street focus, as we've been discussing with the bar planning grant. Finance, again, largely the same, just updated, hoping to have a bond sale. I know Jim Jascott's on the call. We had a preliminary meeting to schedule a bond sale as early as this April or late March for our rating presentation. Always times with budget, which means it's just an extra busy time of the year. Again, planning to pursuing our AAA bond rating, hoping to make a very strong case for reaffirmation. Managing the budget, again, operating capital budget, and the documents for GFOA awards, all of those. And then we added the cybersecurity efforts. I know we had a good discussion of that at the last meeting. We've been doing that for a number of years, but I think it's a great one to codify in our goals and objectives. And so you'll see the cybersecurity focus has been added. Public safety, public health. We have the Chesapicot Health District finances and future goals and plans. Also, the relocation of Chesapicot to Arts Place as a kind of related, but a significant effort now that Arts Place will be moving to the ball and socket location. Fire department staffing and equipment remains. Complete the construction of the Emergency Operations Center in the basement of Town Hall. And then exploring opportunities to address emerging social service issues. This is a new one in town, including expanded case management support and the potential for local emergency temporary housing facility. Again, that was a discussion we had towards the end of the meeting as an emerging issue in town that we've added under the public safety, public health category. Recreation, again, Bartland Park South, no surprise. The evaluating and pursuing appropriate open space land acquisition opportunities and closing out 257 Fenner Road. Implementing the initial construction phases of Mixville Park, again, an item, the master plan that we'll be discussing later in the meeting. Oversee the relocation of Arts Place, again, a big effort to get them up and running. And then also transitioning the reporting relationship from the library to the recreation department for programming. And developing a public gathering permit for large events on town property, we discussed, and it's been discussed extensively by the Rec Commission and across town staff and department heads. Education, again, providing continued support, as I've been doing as a member of the committee for the Next Gen School Building Committee. But I also added a bullet for developing a plan for the future of the Chapman and Darcy school buildings and properties, which we discussed at our last meeting. You'll see here, we'll be discussing again later tonight. We're checking off some of these later in the meeting tonight, which is great. At least the funding in place for some of these, including improving, upgrading the town website and implementing an e-packet solution for efficient electronic creation and distribution of town council meeting materials. Negotiating the 5 collective bargaining agreements that are all open and expiring now. Increasing the use of social media for sharing information to the community. And completing a town hall space needs assessment and identifying improved office space configuration plans. And then finally, the item I referenced earlier, the new category, we have continue responding to the emerging sustainability and solid waste issues, including additional proposals for NIPS revenue, streamlining and establishing consistent bulky waste process, exploring a food waste diversion program or pilot, and consider funding a town staff resource for sustainability initiatives and reporting. And then glide up to the next 2 here, pursue initiatives around improving multimodal transportation options, public transportation and bus shelters as a category, and then sort of grouped a lot of the comments we had: complete streets, trail interconnectivity, sidewalk extensions, and mobility study. Again, pursuing initiatives and opportunities around those items. And lastly, but not least, the energy performance contracting and audits comments that we received. So evaluating effectiveness and implementing where applicable, kind of more, we'll be discussing that during the budget process as well. This last item I was sort of tracking. This wouldn't be in the adopted plan, so to speak, but these were other items we discussed. Some of them we put in the category. I know, Mr. Chairman, we talked to sort of longer term goals or kind of goals for the council, but some that, at least for now, and what we reasonably expect with all of these others that we'll be working on to get accomplished as we're reviewing some of these in November, just about 9 or 10 months away. These are kind of remain priorities, but are sort of off to the side as we focus on the ones that we have here. But next phase of school modernization as a potential future goal, open space acquisition priority list and management, budget web tool, and surveying field use needs. Again, some of these happen whether they're on this list or not, but that, just to be clear, isn't part of the final adopted 7 goal categories. So I will stop sharing because I can't see anybody there, but hopefully that summarizes the recommended goals and objectives.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Kimball? Mr. Malone.
Thank you. I don't want to go backwards too far because obviously efforts been made here and I'm catching up a little bit, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments and I had a couple of just quick questions. I recognize a lot of this from previous objectives and I see some of the changes and I'm very supportive of some of the things. Cybersecurity is very important. I think that's wonderful. That's been there's additional focus on that. Did have a couple of questions on the MOU for Chesprocott. I've seen a draft of something there. I'm wondering what the process is going to be relative to that, because how much will the council be involved? I didn't see a lot of focus on finance, on maybe some other elements that might be important as part of that. And I don't know where that stands. And I'm curious as to whether that will come back to the council and at what time and in what way, because what I saw seems like it's already requiring some documentation, which is getting late in terms of the process. So that's one. The other question I had was the relocation of Chesprocott potentially to Arts Place. I didn't see anything about that in the MOU, so I don't know where that stands. And then the last question I had was having to do with this emergency temporary housing facility. I'm just curious what that's about, because that's something I hadn't heard anything about before, and I'm just curious. So, and then I had one last question, if Sean or someone can just enlighten me on those 3 items.
Sure. So in terms of, I'll start with the process for the MOU. As things stand now, that draft that was just circulated to the council will now also has to go to the other 2 towns for their review, and then also obviously Chesprocott, the board would have to review and agree to the memorandum of understanding. I don't know, maybe Attorney D'Onofrio, anything I'm missing on that in terms of the process, and if you want to speak to any of the other items that Mr. Malone asked about, possibly including, if appropriate, in the MOU.
No, that's the sequence of events. Now that, the town has created a draft, we need the other members of Chesprocott, the other 2 constituent municipalities, to weigh in as to any proposed modifications they have to the draft. And then it'll have to come back to the Cheshire Town Council. And once all 3 towns are comfortable with it, it'll be presented to Chesprocott. So I expect there should be some back and forth on it. The dates that are in there, as Councilman Malone pointed out, are rapidly approaching, if not already here, and those dates will have to be adjusted once we have an actual approved and executed MOU in place.
So is the 1/30/24 draft, Jeff, that is out there? Because that's the only one I've seen.
That's the last draft, yes.
So I would just briefly comment that I didn't see anything in there where there's an assessment of the performance of the health director. I didn't see any financial review reporting. I didn't see any plan for restoring the financial health or addressing the use of the funds that have been accumulated. And also there's no third party assessment. There's an assessment of performance, but it's internal, so there's no third party. So I would just make those minor thoughts or suggestions to be considered before it goes out to the other municipalities, that maybe something in relative to those items be incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Any other comments? Seeing none. Sean, I'll just say, thank you for your work on these. Like I said at the outset, that it's a little bit later than I think we'd like to be getting these, so that you have plenty of time to accomplish the goals. However, as you mentioned, we are knocking out a couple of the items tonight that are part of it, the bar grants, and as well as getting the ball rolling on the website. So, Ms. Pearson, yes.
Yeah, Sean, I just wanted to thank you. I think this very comprehensively and accurately covers what we collectively discussed that day when we reviewed these goals and objectives. So I appreciate your time and refining these and presenting these and sharing these with us. Again, I think this very much aligns with what we discussed. And I did want to follow up because I know Mr. Malone asked about the temporary housing facility. And I know that was in response to an increasing number of individuals in our community who have been demonstrated as having need. And so this was something that Assistant Manager Arnett Talbot brought to our attention. And so this was something that I think the Human Services Department also revealed was a concern, is my understanding. Is that correct, Ms. Talbot?
Yes, our Human Services Department had identified those as growing needs within the community, and there was a challenge in terms of how we were going to be able to handle it and address those issues. So it was a consideration that they wanted to be sure was somewhere on the list. And it's obviously up to the council as to how we proceed on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Veliber.
Yeah, just a quick question to follow up on some of the things that John had mentioned. We've seen this draft, but are we allowed to submit like recommendations and changes and suggestions like before it goes out, or are we waiting for it to come back? I mean, I think John raised some very important questions that we're not really, this doesn't really sort of put any real feet to the fire for Chesprocott to be really evaluated. And I wonder, can we make suggestions? Can we add, recommendations to this?
Well, I mean, the draft has been out to the council for a while now. So if you're going to make recommendations, I'd like to see them in the next couple days, because as Mr. Malone also mentioned, we're past some of the dates that are on there, and I don't want this to drag on, into the fall. So if you're gonna have comments or suggestions, please get them in within the next week. We'll take a look at them, try to incorporate where appropriate, but it's important that this process continue on. We get it to the other two towns, we get it back for our own town council to approve, and we start getting some of the things that we're requesting from Chesprocott. So I don't want this to drag on too much longer, but if you've got stuff, get it to me within a week.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered, because it didn't really sound like it was, we're like, here's the draft we're sending out. So I just want to make sure if there's still opportunity for to put some out, because John raised some very good points I think that we may want to try to incorporate. So thank you.
Anything else as it relates to town manager's goals and objectives? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Item D is the authorization to apply for a 2024 Connecticut Deep Trails Grant program for Mixville and acceptance and appropriation of said grant and 20% match. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 02-13245. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for the Connecticut Deep Recreational Trails Grant in the amount of $260,064 for the installation of a boardwalk, ramps, and sidewalks to enhance accessibility at Mixville Park. And be it resolved, the town council calls for a public hearing at 7 p.m. on March 12th, 2024 in town council chambers to authorize the increase to the FY 2023 Mixville Open Space and Trails capital appropriations from $150,000 to $410,064. And be it further resolved that the town council allocates $65,016 from the FY 23 adopted Mixville Park Trails and Open Space capital appropriations to fulfill the town's 20% match.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I know that the match amount would be 65,016. I see that Mr. Martelli is with us tonight. Andrew, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little background on this, please.
Sure, Sean, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to go?
Yeah, maybe if I could, I'll just quickly introduce that piece of it, the finances, and then have Andrew kind of explain some of the grant components, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman. The necessity of the public hearing as well. So this is an opportunity under a deep recreation trails grant to apply for a component of the Mixville Park Master Plan that we have presented last year, including in this case the installation of the boardwalk, ramps, sidewalks, adding accessibility and ADA accessibility around and circuitously through Mixville Park. From a financial standpoint, if you'll recall back in 2022, when we were adopting the fiscal 23 capital budget, we approved $150,000 for improvements and enhancements to Mixville Park. Conceptually, that's when we were working on and beginning the process of the master plan and working on a design for the ultimate, the rest of the project, some of which will be done in-house, including the ice rink, permanent ice rink area, the expanded parking, relocation of the beach volleyball area and things like that, and added parking and again, accessibility through sidewalks and a boardwalk across and through Mixville Park. So the $65,000, which represents the 20% match, we are taking from that 150,000. That's the town's basically contributing 150,000 through our capital project, inclusive of that $65,000. That's why the total capital appropriation goes from 150 to 410,000, because that's the $260,000 grant that we're asking for from the state of Connecticut. And then lastly, because that now pushes the project over $250,000 per our charter, that requires a public hearing, which we'll do at our next council meeting to formalize the increased appropriation. So thank you to Jim Jascott for working with me on that relatively complicated financial machinations. But now I'll turn it over to Andrew just for a brief summary. I know he and Merrick, our town engineer, have been working on this for some time. So
Sure. So thank you, Sean, for that. So as Sean pointed out, this is a Connecticut Deeps Trails Program grant. This grant round is open every year. This year is $10 million aggregate for the entire state for all projects. Working with the town engineer based on the master plan for Mixville. This is for the installation of a boardwalk, which will go from the existing parking area and circling out to the pond, giving ADA access to the beach for the first time, and then up towards the basketball courts and then over to the bathrooms. So now ADA compliance will be met throughout the park. There's an installation of a concrete sidewalk going up from the boardwalk area to the bathrooms. And then back over to the parking area, and then some enhancements to the actual parking area. The total budget for this phase of the work at Mixville is $325. Of that, we're going to be requesting $260,064 from the state grant program, and then the match of again 25% to $65,000 local share. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I have the if anybody would like. Why don't I just do that quick? Let me just share my screen. Did you guys see this?
No. Sean, do you have to give him permission?
Yeah, try
or
again,
whatever?
Andrew. I just gave you permission to share your screen.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep,
You guys see
here it
that?
comes, Andrew.
Okay, everyone sees that?
Yes,
Okay. So can you see my cursor too?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what we're talking about here is this boardwalk area. Here's the existing parking. Which you see there's some upgrades that'll be done to this as part of the overall project, not necessarily funded through this grant. But this is where the ADA access will be granted to the beach area, and then encircling up over towards where the other drop-off circle is existing, and then this will terminate here into a concrete sidewalk in order to give access over to the bathroom area. So it's in line with the parameters of the grant. And, you know, one of the things that's difficult when we do apply for these state funded projects is we don't get a lot of the points. A lot of them are geared more towards urban areas, but this one, we do check a lot of the boxes in the funding. And so I think it's a great project, and engineering has been really supportive in putting together the application with me. So any other questions about the answer?
Questions for Mr. Martelli or Mr. Kimball? Ms. Pearson?
Just a comment, really. I know that the Parks and Rec Commission is very excited about this entire Mixville plan. And so thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Sean, for all of the work and everyone in Town Hall in terms of finding this grant and finding this funding so that we can actually support this financially in such a creative and complex way.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Anyone else? Ms. Kramer?
I just wanted to point out one of our discussions about communication. I know a few Cheshirites have contacted me about almost like we ignore Mixville Park. And I had to tell them that there's so much good going on there right now. And it's through the amazing work of our administration that it's happening, and people don't know. So I just thought that maybe this project in particular could use a little care and attention and getting some out there to the public.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Brings us to item E, the aforementioned BAR grant and round 19 grant program. Appropriation of the 10% match for said grant. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-6, whereas pursuant to CGS section 32-763, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the town of Cheshire make an application to the state for a $90,000 brownfield area-wide revitalization BAR planning grant to assist with the development of a comprehensive plan for the West Main Street area and to allow for additional feasibility, planning, and environmental studies of the area and to execute an assistance agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town council that it is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by CGS section 32-763, and that the filing of an application for state financial assistance by the town of Cheshire in an amount not to exceed $90,000 is hereby approved, and that the town manager, Sean M. Kimball, is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for the state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Cheshire, and that the town council allocates $10,000 from the capital planning account to fulfill the town's 10% matching obligation should said grant be awarded.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Veliber, thank you. Is this Mr. Kimball? Can you give us some of the background on this, please?
Mr. Martelli. So this one.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy.
I almost went to.
I'll keep this as brief as possible. So this is the second funding that we're going after through the BAR planning program. So BAR planning, as Mr. Jenks pointed out, stands for the Brownfield Area Redevelopment Program through the Department of Economic and Development, which is a state-funded grant program through the Brownfields group up at DECD. We applied for the last BAR grant funding, which we were able to receive, same exact $90,000 state, $10,000 local share match. We're currently working through that plan now. We've hired a consultant and we have had the design trip back in October over at Rebel Interactive, where we solicited feedback from the neighbors. It's all centered around the West Main Street area. Making great progress. The state's been very happy with the progress that the town has been making on this, and the spin-off development that we're starting to see already as part of the planning process. Where we are now, just to kind of give you an update. So with the existing funding that we have, we're going to be working through planning and zoning over the next several months to come up with the form-based code, which we've been working through with the property owners as well as with the consultant. And then getting that out, getting that reviewed through the public, P&Z, through public hearings, etc. But as we've been going through that, we've realized that there's more that needs to be done as part of putting this plan together. There's a lot of parcels, there's past industrial uses out there. There's additional phase 1 environmental assessments we'd like to complete on some of the properties. So we have all of the answers that we need once the plan actually hits the street and is ready to be adopted. So that's what this funding is for. Instead of going after other planning funding, the grant round reopened. So I figured that we'd throw our hat back in the bank to see if we can get some more funding from the state to help guide us a little bit further along.
Mr. Velber.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, and I appreciate this. So this is a continuation of what we experienced last fall when they had that meeting for the West Main Street area. So this is continuing sort of the same consultants to do more, to continue with that work, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
And do we think that is this like an, is there a continuation for this beyond this? Do you think that there's, as far as looking for more money, I know this is probably the most we can get at any given time, but I'm just curious, do you think that this is going to be enough, or is it going to continual requests, hopefully for more money in the future, more grants that we might need in the future?
I think that this will finish out our first phase of the bar plan, and you're going to see your next agenda item. I'm looking for, we're going to be doing some traffic studies and other, but I want to use other money for that type of work to help to facilitate the plan. But through the bar planning, I think that this is going to be the last time that we're going to go through that. We're going to get this plan done. I want to get this thing to P&Z in the public forum, see how it plays out, and see if they're willing to accept it, approve it, and then get the thing codified and on the books. So I'd like to have that done this year, and so I don't want to continue dragging this on.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Other questions? Mr. Jinks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Andrew, I just wanted to, I guess further clarify what David was asking, maybe for myself, not for him or anybody else necessarily. Is this additional funding for studies and things to get us to the point where we can actually get a completed form-based code for the area? Is that what we're doing?
So we'll have the existing contract we have now will get us the form-based code, but this is going to be, there's been other questions, like there's a lot of environmental issues that we need to look at. So we need to do some phase 1 environmental site assessments of some of the properties. We need to do some additional surveying. We need to look at the canal and how that relates to the properties and the dredging and all of that. And so this program allows for us to go after kind of a bulk funding in order to do those services. But the contract that we have right now is to bring us to the adoption of the form-based code.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Mr. Milone.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'm supportive of this for all the right reasons, but Andrew, I'm not sure if our firm will be doing any of this work. So just out of abundance of caution, I will not, I'll abstain from voting on it, and that's the only reason why.
Thank you, Mr. Milone.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes 8-0-1 with Mr. Milone abstaining. Item number 8F is the review of recommendations from the EDC for expenditure of $400,000 worth of funding received from the State Bond Commission. Mr. Martelli, you're a busy guy tonight.
So there's no motion, right? This is just an informative.
That's correct.
Yeah,
it's just the discussion.
So you have a copy of the memo. So just to kind of take a step back. So we received this in the state budget. So it's $400,000 for economic development purposes. What we did was we brought this to the Economic Development Commission, who reviewed it. They established a subcommittee. Subcommittee met and reviewed the funding and came up with the items that are listed on the memo. So I'll go through those pretty quick. The first one is for a traffic and utility analysis of West Main Street focus area. Again, this is in relation to the bar planning. This is a specific proposal that we have received in order to look at the bar plan, what the traffic can or can't be generated from that development and how it will interplay with West Main Street. Also looking at the utilities in the area, potable water, sanitary sewer, to make sure that what we're proposing can actually be supported by the existing infrastructure in the area, which was a big item that was brought up during the design charrette. And also has been a question of a lot of the property owners and developers that we have spoken to who have interest in some of the properties out there on West Main Street. And then overall, just traffic analysis. Now, I know that there's an idea to do a larger traffic study for the town. We wanted to start this process now, sooner rather than later, because this funding is available. And we want to get this work started now to help support the bar plan. So that's item number one. Item number two is, again, seed money for the West Main Street area. There has been some discussion that we'll talk about probably a later date in executive session for potentially some additional parking in the area. So we have some funding in there to increase some municipal parking. I think, as we all know, as that area grows, having some parking that's controlled by the town could be very beneficial to the overall plan. Some facade and signage program. Again, as part of the form-based code, there's going to be some design standards that are going to be adopted. So having some seed money in order to have a program for that for some of the property owners that are existing out there. Planters and street furniture, general landscaping, and then also some welcome signage. Arkansas has designed a branding effort for the area, so we'd like to actually get some of this stuff actually put out on the street so we can show progress to the state. And then third item is $10,000 towards the creation of a business resource center at the Cheshire Chamber of Commerce. I've worked with Yetta on this and then other members of the EDC. This is envisioned to be a one-year effort as a one-stop shop for new businesses who are looking to open in town. Some of the smaller businesses, they have some pretty, a lot of questions when they start off a business, which I'm happy to work with. But having a designated spot that Yetta can funnel people to, and myself, with a designated workspace with all the resources into kind of a how-to as to how to get a business started here in town. And then be able to walk through the different permitting process and registration with town clerk, and grant opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what came out of the subcommittee of the EDC, and I'm happy to take any feedback.
Questions for Mr. Martelli? Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Andrew. Just a quick question on going back on this entrepreneurship $10,000. Is your idea to have like an office space where somebody, whether it's Yetta or somebody else from the chamber, would be meeting with the people, or, I mean,
yes,
or it's like a satellite office of the chamber?
No, so it's within the chamber's office. They have a designated space that they're going to set up for the use by a new business with a designated computer and printing services, etc. So it's a space within the existing chamber here on South Main Street.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure exactly what that idea was, because $10,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money to set up an office. Having set up an office before, and I know it's a lot more than $10,000.
No, it's within the footprint of the chamber.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Velaber.
Yep, thank you. Just to follow up on Don's question, Andrew, are we contemplating that we're dedicating some amount of money to paying chamber staff to sort of train them and get them up to speed, or is this just where we're sort of renting some space from them and that the cost, the chamber's just doing this, on their own? I guess, are we picking up or defraying some of the cost of a chamber staff person to train these people? Is that what part of this is?
Yeah, so it's a small amount of staff time from the chamber to help to assist the individuals when they do come. And then the way that it's going to work is let's say, Dave, you're gonna be setting up a business in town. The amount of staff time that is spent to help supporting you as you're being walked through those various steps, that'll be recorded. And also, this is a 1-year type of a pilot program, and we're gonna track how many people are using it, what the outcomes were from it. And again, it's the money that's coming from the states that we're trying to show also as part of the funding. A connection between the Chamber of Commerce and the town to help with economic development townwide. So that was kind of the thought behind it. And I do get a lot of people who are trying to start a new business and they're trying to get their trade name registered and they don't even know what these things really are when they're trying to get the financing to get the brick and mortar type thing going. So I think it's worth a shot to see how it goes for a year. For sure.
No, I appreciate that. And I also see here that it includes a grant for 10 new chamber memberships. So we would also be picking up their chamber membership for the first year, at least for some of these people. Okay.
All right. So then they can get their ribbon cutting and all those things that come with the chamber.
Listen, nobody loves a good ribbon cutting as much as I do. All right.
I said, I know how you have a 95% attendance rate. So
exactly. So, but a couple other questions on this related to this event. Now, obviously this is focused on West Main Street, but was the grant so primarily for West Main Street, or is that just where economic development thought that money should be spent?
That's where economic thought the money should be spent. The grant, the way that the funding came from the state of Connecticut was for economic development purposes.
Okay. And a question, I know on some of the focused enhancements, on the 305,000, when you're talking about increased surface parking in area, what does that mean? Are you looking to try to acquire more spots, pave more spots? How are you going to be increasing surface parking area?
So there's the potential to create more surface parking in the area through a property that's privately owned right now that I'd like to discuss potentially in executive session at some point.
Absolutely. Thank you. I was just trying to figure out where you're going to pick up some of it's a pretty tight spot in there and most of the square inches are taken up. So
yeah, so I've talked to a lot of property owners and so there's some ideas. And that's why when EDC was going through this versus kind of saying, 50,000 here, 100,000 here and breaking it down. That's why it's written that way. Because an opportunity came up that may or may not be feasible for the town to look at. So
yeah, and I'd assume, for example, if you pick up some of this spot, that may eat up more of the 305,000 than you might have thought, and therefore some of these other things may not be available in that grant. But this is sort of a wish list of items that you may want to use to cover. So, yes. And then obviously my other last question relates to the facade and signage program. Normally in something like that, and it's funny, I was looking at that and I was reading the minutes and I saw that Mike Ceccarulli had, as an EDC member, had mentioned this as well. Usually those are in the form of some kind of loan or mortgage or grant on the property that people would take out. Is that something that we would be looking at? And then usually they're managed, and Mike raises too, by some kind of development authority or a municipal agency handles that financing. So would you be contemplating potentially creating a development authority to oversee that?
Right. And so, we haven't had a lot of time since we got the money. And so that's, there's a lot of questions like that. That's why we didn't say, hey, we want to establishing facade signage program. There's a lot that has to go into that,
Absolutely.
How big are the loans? What's the match? What's the years? What's the payback? Is there a payback? Is there a grant? Is there a loan? So all of that still needs to be fleshed out. We'd be working with Jeff D'Onofrio, and you would see anything like that prior to us starting a facade program. So
right. No, I know that's something that's going to take a lot of management. I just wanted to make sure that was what you were contemplating when you were doing that, because obviously most people, especially some of those businesses, if they're not going to do complete overhauls, either be bought out and have somebody rebuild. If you're just going to keep an existing owner to now hit them with a new facade requirement, they may say, I don't have that kind of money to comply with that, and that's where this would come in to help them defray that cost.
Right. And I've looked at other programs, like Clinton has one. I administered one in a past life in Waterbury. So, but it's very specific to this area. And so there's a lot of questions that we still need to look at. We still need to do a lot of fact finding on it.
Great.
Move forward with that, Dave.
Well, thank you. It's a good report. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Martelli? Andrew, real quick on the traffic study piece, the past council and the current council are both very interested, or both were very interested, and are very interested in a town-wide traffic study. Will this be of the same level that the town is seeking to do? And would this save us some money because we can carve out this West Main Street area and just get the surrounding portion of the town?
Well, this is gonna focus on the build out potential for this area and how it interrelates with West Main Street. So, how that plays into the overall town, I would assume that you could use that information, but that might be a better question for John.
Okay.
Because
I think what Andrew's saying is correct, Peter. I think this is probably going to focus more on how you could effectively develop the area in West Main Street, but not so much how it's going to impact the overall operations of the town.
Okay.
But just so that that area can be developed, you don't create problems or have expectations that you can't achieve locally. But yes, it will definitely be something that will be usable for an overall traffic study, but not necessarily focused on those same types of objectives.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, John. Next item is item G, approval of modification to program income reuse plan and reallocation of $75,000 from the CDBG housing rehab program income account to the Cheshire Housing Authority to be used for shortfalls with the Beachport project. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-7. Whereas the town of Cheshire has received funds under the Connecticut Small Cities Community Development Block Grant CDBG program administered by the State of Connecticut Department of Housing, DOH, pursuant to Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. And whereas the town of Cheshire has expended those funds pursuant to Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, the Code of Federal Regulations and the Assistance Agreement, and whereas those funds received by the town of Cheshire have generated program income. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Cheshire Town Council, 1, that it is cognizant of the conditions for the use of program income as prescribed by Title 24, Part 570, Section 489E and F of the Code of Federal Regulations. 2, that it realizes program income is governed by Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. 3, that it may use program income only for the following activities. A, the activity that generated the program income if the activity continues to meet the requirements of Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. And B, any additional activity that meets the requirements of Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act if the town receives DOH's written approval to fund it with program income. 4, that it may use program income to fund administrative and program soft costs within the following limits: administrative costs at 8% and total administrative and program soft costs at 20%. 5, that it is hereby amending the program income plans that was adopted for the original activity that generated the program income to permit the funding of additional activities from that program income. And finally, 6, that it hereby reallocates $75,000 from the CDBG Housing Rehab Program income account to the Cheshire Housing Authority to be used towards the renovations and upgrades at the Beachport Housing Complex project.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Martelli, are you
Sure,
up
yes.
once again, sir?
I will, yeah, get started yet. So Ann Belcher's also on the Zoom this evening.
Oh, good.
Director of the Housing Authority. So I will start off, and then she can hopefully finish it out. So we were approached by the Housing Authority. So the town holds program income from an earlier program. So basically what happens is the town has been working through some roof replacements and for low and moderate income individuals through various grant years. Over time, those funds end up getting paid back when a property sells, and then through other mechanisms. And so we have about $100,000 that is in an account here. The Beachport project is under construction now. As the grant manager for the town, I have been working with the Housing Authority to process those payment applications, etc. So I'm pretty familiar with the project that's going on there. I was approached by Ann to see if some of that money could be used towards the Beachport project. Had multiple discussions with the financing body who could allow for this to happen. It does fall, as Ms. Eller read in her resolution, it does fall under item B, that it is an allowable use, but we do have to amend the actual plan because this is not how the town originally received the money. So we do have to do a public notification process to let the public know that we're going to be reallocating some of this funding, if you folks agree to move it forward this evening, towards the Beachport project in order to complete that project out. I just would like to say that Beachport is our largest housing development that the Housing Authority manages. They're doing a great job rehabilitating that. It's an older development. And so I think this money is going towards the original vein of what it was approved for to benefit our low to moderate income residents. So with that, if Ann wants to chime in, if that's appropriate, Peter. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, absolutely. Ann, thank you for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I thought since we have a relatively new council, I would just kind of bring everybody up to speed exactly what Beachport is and what the Housing Authority is. The Housing Authority is a nonprofit submunicipal. We do not receive funds from the town of Cheshire. Beachport is federally subsidized through the Section 8 program. It was established in 1975, and the board at that point put into action the building of Beachport, which was completed in October of 1981. We have many of the original components from 1981, including the bathrooms, the kitchens, the flooring. The roadway was redone in 1995-ish, I believe, and 10 more parking spaces were added to give a total of 38 for the total of 48 apartments. That does not include spaces for staff to park, visitors, aides, or people or apartments that have more than one person living in it. So we applied for a grant, the CDBG grant in 2017. We did not get the grant then because it was so heavy in site work, and that was not the goal or intent of the grant. We historically in the past several years have gone every other year with social services to apply for this grant. We then applied in 2020 and were awarded the grant because the funding had increased to $1.5 million. So we were able to put in a fire alarm upgrade and kitchens. Now going back in time, this was 2020 when we applied and were awarded. As you all recall, 2020 is kind of when the world ended as we know it, and prices of construction materials skyrocketed. We had to do a lot of value engineering to get to where we are now. We finally got the funding in 2023, and we started the project the very end of June of 2023. these much needed upgrades was the widening of parts of Rumburg Road for our emergency personnel to access the property better. Especially on days like today where it snows, it creeps in, especially the one-way area. The fire alarm system was upgraded in the early 90s, but it was really not up to current codes. We currently now have a fire panel that is 100% accessible by the fire department at all times instead of in a locked closet. The smoke, heat sensors, and call for aids will all go directly to central monitoring, and they will dispatch the proper emergency personnel instead of a good neighbor policy or the person that set off the alarm calling the fire department to have them come and shut it off. We had to value engineer with reducing what does get paved. We had to take out Rumburg Road proper. The paving will start at the corner where it turns into Beachport. We added several parking spaces back behind the garage. Those will not be paved, it will be gravel. And we had to remove several kitchens out of that original application. And instead of 38 kitchens being done, we only did 12. That being said, we still have a shortfall because, as you can imagine, property that was built in 1981, none of us were there then. I've been there for 20 years, but still there's a lot of things that have gone in the ground since then. Electric, cable, telephone, and the codes have changed. So every time a shovel went in the ground to dig up the sidewalks, we pulled up many other things, main communication lines, fire response lines, which just increased the cost of what we were already strapped. And that is why we went to the town and asked if there was any funds that they could help us with. We did go to DOH and ask them. There was no funds available, and they had suggested that we asked about these funds.
Excellent, Ann. Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
some of the background as well. Questions, council members, for either Mr. Martelli or Ms. Belcher? Ms. Allard?
Still muted.
Yep, still on mute.
Sorry, there we go.
There
Okay.
you are.
This is a question, I think, for Andrew. My question is the fund where that money is being held now. If we didn't approve this resolution, what would those funds be used for? Is it just money that is just kind of sitting in an account, and so this is a great opportunity to use it? Or I just wanted to make sure that there's no other program that is going to be negatively affected by this decision.
Sure. So the town can advertise for the availability of funds for stabilization programs for our low to moderate income residents. And that was one of the reasons why we're retaining the $25,000. So we can advertise for, and if there are projects that are in the pipeline, whether it be a roof replacement, kind of these one-off type projects at residential properties in town. That's what that money is there for. That's what it was originally allocated for. So to answer your question, there will still be money available for the residents, but this bulk of this will go to Beachport. But as time goes on, that account will get replenished as money continues to get repaid back into it. So there will be additional funding that will end up in that account over in the next couple years.
Great, thank you so much. That explains it well. Thank you.
Sure, you got it.
Mr. Veliber.
Thank you, Andrew and/or Ann. I want to question for Beth. I know that the housing authority manages other properties besides Beachport throughout the town. I think there's like 6 or 7 houses. What's the condition of those? And so it sounds like you're saying that these 25,000 you're keeping up, would that be usable for some of those properties too? If there's repairs that need to be worked at additional properties?
Go ahead, Ann.
I can answer. We do have Foot Commons, which is 20 family affordable, and we have 9 scattered sites that the town has given us over the years since 1995 until about 8 years ago was the last one added, I believe. The last one on Boulder Road is in, I'll be very honest, deplorable condition.
Yes.
We received it in very bad condition. So we may be coming back to the council for that. There is, again, we had the small cities, the CDBG grant in 2008 to fix up the 8 affordable units that we had, the houses. Again, site work was never a part of those grants. They approved it with Beachport because the property is so old and we don't have $1 million hanging around. So, you know, the houses on Mixville and Boulder Road do need driveway work. Those are things that need to be done, as well as the just general condition of one of the other houses on Boulder Road.
Okay, so it means there's other properties that are going to need work, but right now this 75,000 is going to finish what you think needs to be finished at Beachport.
Correct, because the Housing Authority has put in much more than $100,000 to this project, and we just don't have any more.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Please signify by raising your hand. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present.
Thank you.
Thank you both, Mr. Martelli, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Item H is the authorization to apply for an acceptance and appropriation of the 2024 Municipal Historic Documents Preservation Program Grant. Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-8. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for the 2024 Historic Document Preservation Grant from the Connecticut State Library in the amount of $7,500 for document imaging for the town clerk's office, and accepts and appropriates this said grant.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you very much. Ms. Talbot, do you have the background on this one, or?
Yes. This is an annual grant that the town clerk's office has been securing for at least 8 to 10 years for this particular project. They've been digitizing the old land records, and they're hopefully with this grant, they're going to be able to go back to the original documents all the way to the beginning and have everything digitized. They also have some additional historic documents that they would also like to digitize. If they can make a dent in those, they will do that. Or they, if not, they will continue to apply for this grant. Traditionally, it's been from between $7,000 and $10,000 a year.
Excellent. And I know we've utilized those in the past to get us as far as we've gotten. So we keep diving further back in time, which is absolutely great that these records are now being digitized. So thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you. Brings us to item I, approval of a contract extension with Info Quick Solutions, Inc., and approval of a new contract. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-9. Be resolved that the town council approves the contract extension with Info Quick Solutions Incorporated, IQS, for the software program for the land records through June 30th, 2024, And be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this contract extension pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented and the approval by the town attorney as to form and function.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Thank you, Mr. Jinks. This is Patty again. So, Arnett, you're up again. Thank you.
InfoQuick Solutions is the company that handles the land records management for the town clerk's office. Their contract expired earlier this month. They have offered to extend it through June at no price change, which is very helpful for the clerk's office. And the town clerk will be back to the council hopefully in May with a new contract going forward from that June date. So it's merely an extension for a few months at the same rate until they can negotiate a successor contract.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Please signify by raising your hand. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you. Brings us to item J, the approval of amendments to the Cheshire 401A plan addendum to the adoption agreement. Ms. Allard, you get the other long one tonight. We gave you a couple in between so you could catch your breath, and now you're ready to go again.
Yes, I'm reading the amended one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 021324-10. Whereas the town sponsors the town of Cheshire 401A plan, known as the 401A plan, and whereas Code of Ordinances, Section 2-131E provides that the town council may adopt and amend retirement plans at any time. And whereas the 401A plan must be 1, correctively and retroactively amended effective July 1st, 2016, to reflect the applicable provisions of the agreements made by and between the town and the Cheshire Police Union, effective from July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2020, and from July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2024, respectively, permitting participants in the 401A plan who are represented by the Cheshire Police Union to make after-tax voluntary participant contributions, subject to the applicable limitations of the 401A plan. And 2, amended to reflect the applicable provisions of the January 1st, 2024 employment contract made by and between the town and the town's manager, continuing to require the town to make fixed employer contributions on behalf of the manager equal to 10% of the manager's earnings for the plan year, continuing to not require the manager to make required mandatory participant contributions, and effective as of February 13th, 2024, permitting the manager to make after-tax voluntary participant contributions subject to the applicable limitations of the 401A plan. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that pursuant to the authority set forth in section 14.01 of the 401A plan and Code of Ordinances section 2-131E, the town council hereby approves the adoption of the amended and restated adoption agreement for the 401A plan, including the addendum to such adoption agreement, reflecting the above described amendments effective as of the dates set forth therein, in substantially the forms attached hereto, with all such corrections as the town manager shall approve. His execution and delivery thereof to be conclusive evidence of this approval. And further resolve that the town manager be and he hereby is authorized, empowered, and directed to execute the amended and restated adoption agreement for the 401A plan in substantially the form attached hereto on behalf of the town, with all such corrections as the town manager shall approve. His execution and delivery thereof to be conclusive evidence of his approval, and to make any and all such additional actions as he deems necessary or appropriate in order to implement the same.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. That's a long one.
Yeah.
Do we have a second, Mr. Walsh? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Jascott, I hope you didn't write that resolution
I'd like
because
to just,
Ms. Allard will be in
thank
your
you,
office tomorrow.
Dina, first off, that was a really long resolution. I apologize for that. But you did a good job in reading it. And really this was to amend the 401A defined contribution plan, which our police officers participate in, at least the new police officers that are no longer in the defined benefit pension plan. And it concerns voluntary employee contributions only. So there's no cost to the town here. This does not have anything to do with what the town contributes. So it recently came to our attention that the plan document wasn't consistent with our union contract, which in 2016 was the contract change to allow participants to contribute on a voluntary basis. And that plan document had never been updated to allow for that. So really, that's what this all boils down to, is updating the plan document to be consistent with our police union contract, retroactive back to 2016. And at the same time, we took the liberty, since Sean was recently added into the 401 defined contribution plan within the last year or two, we saw no reason why he shouldn't be able to avail himself of making voluntary employee contributions as well. Again, there's no cost to the town, and this is really to get the document up to speed with current contract language.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Mr. Jascott? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Mr. Veliber, can you just, yep, thank you. Has to be on video, so thank you, Mr. Veliber. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you, Mr. Jascott. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item K is the approval of Bartlam Park Phase 1 Construction Phase Services Contract Amendment with Weston and Sampson. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 01232411. Be it resolved that the town council hereby approves the contract amendment with Weston and Sampson Engineers for the construction and closeout for the Bartlam Park Phase 1 capital project. And be it further resolved, the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this contract amendment pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented, and the approval by the town attorney as to form and function.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you, sir. Mr. Kimball.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed briefly during Budget Committee at the beginning of the meeting, this is the continuation, proposed continuation of the construction administration services contract with Weston and Sampson during construction phase, engineering and oversight during the project. 18-month construction window. If you recall, or the council 9 months ago entered into a first 9-month contract with that ran from April 2023 to the end of December 2023 for a variety of reasons at the time, but also in part to recognizing that the bulk of the work, and there were a lot of estimates involved in the lump sum price that we were receiving in terms of number of on-site meetings, number of submissions, number of change orders, and we felt it was in the town's best interest to divide that contract into two effectively, one 9-month period and the following 9-month period. And in the end, I think that was a good move by the town. The original, very first CA services contract proposed to us was $360,000. And we negotiated that down, and again, also split that into a 9-month contract valued at $160,000. And now with the progress that's been made and the amount of work remaining, we were in a position to negotiate a roughly $100,000 9-month contract for the remaining 9 months. We've gone back and forth. Credit to our town engineer, Merrick Comment, and his staff for identifying a number of items that we could successfully negotiate and push back on as we tried to come to an agreement here, which we had. And so again, and credit to Weston Sampson, they've been good, and the projects remained on time and through January, where they were effectively continuing to work. Obviously, we didn't have this done while we were negotiating last month, but it would be our request that we again approve this contract, and ultimately by splitting this out effectively, we saved about $100,000 off of the very initial proposal for the 18-month contract. So we think this is a good deal. Engineering department is comfortable with all of the aspects of it, and they recommend approval at this time.
Questions for Mr. Kimball on the item? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item L is the public hearing waiver and bid waiver for emergency repair work to South Main Street and authorization of emergency appropriation. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 021324-12. Whereas on January 15, 2024, the WPCA was alerted to a sewer force main break located along South Main Street, and emergency repairs were deemed necessary for the purpose of meeting a public emergency threatening public health, public safety, and the property of citizens. Now therefore be it resolved that the town council, pursuant to section 7-5 of the town charter, hereby waives the public hearing and notice process for emergency appropriations for this emergency appropriation, which needed to be expended immediately, and be it further resolved that the town council, pursuant to section 7-5 of the town charter, authorizes an emergency additional appropriation of $475,000 from the Water Pollution Control Fund balance, and thereby increasing the Water Pollution Control Fund operating budget from $4,726,124 to $5,201 or $5,201,124 for the purpose of the immediate repair of the ruptured sewer force main. And be it further resolved that the town council, pursuant to section 7-8C11 of the town charter, approves a waiver of bid to contract with La Rosa Construction Company Incorporated for the purpose of completing the necessary emergency repairs.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, I saw. Yep. Thank you. Mr. Kimball, before you go into this one, I just wanted to thank you and commend you for the way you stayed on top of this. I know that you were on site on multiple occasions, as well as checking in with the businesses that were in the area that were affected by some of the construction work. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge and thank you for your work on that.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. And yes, there was an unfortunate situation with the sewer main break there on South Main Street, and particularly because it affected most directly a number of businesses there in front of that sort of Rose Dairy, CJ Sparrow's Plaza over the course of better part of 2 weeks. So, but our engineering staff stayed very much on it. Our WPCD staff and superintendent, of course, stayed very in close contact throughout and supervised, and were on scene much more than I even was, but we were all down there a number of times for sure. But yeah, so again, as the resolution references, back on January 15th, we had an emergency break in the force main sewer line that runs from Mansion Road. The line ultimately runs all the way up to the interceptor in front of the high school and down, and then continues up to Academy Road before under force main pressure before it goes by gravity up to the plant on Cheshire Street. So a very critical line under a lot of pressure. And if you recall at the time, also under a lot of pressure from historic rain water that we were receiving at the time, and the I&I issues we know exist in the system that we'll be addressing and discussing more during the budget. It was under enormous strain, but also we had a leak occurring from an RWA line in the area that we're continuing to investigate whether that also contributed to the break. Nonetheless, the work, we're also finally, we're still pursuing and going back and forth with the insurance company to see whether there's any insurance coverage, trying to determine that factor for possible reimbursement. But ultimately, nonetheless, we do need to pay the contractors that all responded in an emergency fashion. The upper estimate of that, again, some of the final tallying is still being done by the engineering department, but the request here is for a $475,000 appropriation from the sewer fund balance, which currently is about $1.15 million or so. Yep. And so that's, again, the better part, almost 50% of their existing fund balance. But it does put them, that's why it's there, right? It's the rainy day fund. It's there for emergencies outside of the budget. And hopefully we'll find a way to recoup or restore some of those funds as we move forward and as we'll discuss during the budget. But the current year budget to pay for the repair has to be amended, as you saw in the resolution, increasing their budget by $475,000. And then on the revenue side, funding it with their reserves. All of this is allowable under a specific charter section that we don't use very often, have not used in my time here, but it's an emergency appropriation section when public health, public safety is at risk, which is clearly the case in this instance. We've confirmed that both with Attorney D'Onofrio and others that this is an applicable use. And it does allow you, as the resolution states, to waive any hearing requirement and make an emergency appropriation expeditiously so we can move forward with the project that we didn't anticipate, but have to take care of in an emergency fashion. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball, and we're certainly thankful that we don't have to use it that frequently. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. And just a quick question. I know there's going to have to be paving of that parking lot as well. That's not part of the 475,000. That's going to be a separate thing later on, or will that be included?
Sorry. That is a good question. My understanding is it is not included in this estimate, but I will confirm. It's possible, again, I know it's an upper estimate, and any funds we don't need to use, of course, would just remain in the fund balance. The initial estimate that I know I received from Eric was somewhere between $400,000 and $475,000. So it's possible that if we are able to come in on the lower end of that budget, if you will, that there will be funds available within for the restoration. But we have, discussed with the landlord there, who was, very accommodating to the equipment that had to take over virtually the entire parking lot, as anyone who drove by saw. And certainly there was wear and tear to the parking lot itself, and there's the restoration of the actual sidewalk that needs to occur, and the curbing and pavement there. So yeah, there's certainly some expense. We have to wait till the asphalt plants are back up and you can do paving again before we really can make any permanent repairs there. But I don't know if it's in the actual 475 estimate, but again, as I said, if we come in under on the other components of this, we may have availability to do that work there or within the existing budget.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item N is the M is the appropriation of $48,227.93 in ARPA funding for the town website rebuild with the integration of minutes and agenda management software and bid waiver authorization. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 021324-13. Be it resolved that the town council, in accordance with the recommendation of the Technology Study Group and pursuant to section 7-38C11 of the town charter, hereby approves a waiver of bid for the contracts with Civic Plus for the reconstruction and hosting of the Town of Cheshire website and integration of an agenda and meeting management software, and appropriates $48,227.93 from ARPA funds to a special revenue fund for the implementation and year one fees of said project. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute these contracts pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented, and the approval by the town attorney as to form and function. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Allard, thank you. So this was the subject of the technology study group. We actually got to meet with Civic Plus and excuse me, got a demo of some of the websites that municipal websites that they have in the country. Not only that, but our neighbors in Hamden, they use Civic Plus, and that was one of the ones that we were able to take a look at. It was a great presentation. I know that staff who had met with Civic Plus and been doing the homework on this project prior to the technology study group's involvement was very impressed with this organization. This, of course, was the subject of item 8C when we talked about the town manager's goals and objectives, and we mentioned the website reconstruction was going to be included in that and would be coming up later. And this is that item. So happy to answer between Sean and I and Arnett, who has been very involved, answer any questions about the website. Mr. Milone, you're on. Yep. You're on mute, John. Thank you.
Okay, just quickly, it looks like, as I understand it, and I'm just catching up with this, there's about just under $50,000 expense for them to take over the reconstruction and hosting. And then it's about $25,000 a year after that. What do we pay now for just the annual expense, just out of curiosity, in terms of comparison? Is it similar or?
It is, we pay a little less now, or I would say significantly less now. It's about, I think it's about $7,000 or $8,000 a year. Arnett, is that right? I can pull it from the budget to confirm. I know it's under 10,000. For the website. 7,000.
Yep.
I will say, however, in the 2 years since we launched the website, we've also had to pay outside consultants multiple times, thousands of dollars, candidly, for fixing dead links and trying to come up with workarounds, because the current website has virtually no tech support that in any meaningful fashion that's effective. I know we all have noticed every time you try to post a link to a town website or follow a link, or you try to post something on Facebook, you'll see it'll say hosted.civiclive.whatever. All of that is because of problems with the current website's configuration. From a user standpoint, from the public user standpoint, it's pretty awful. I can assure you it's almost worse from the staff standpoint of trying to keep it updated, something that Noel sadly has been tasked at this point with almost exclusive updating for a lot of the town departments that have given up on their ability to update it. So it's I would just say we're certainly getting what we pay for. I know it's a lot cheaper, and Civic Plus will be very clear. They are not the absolute cheapest in the industry. We have compared to a number of the other leaders. Civic Live at this point is just not an option, but Civic Plus, and I know those sound familiar, but they're very, very different. Civic Plus is really the market leader in this whole segment across the country in municipalities. And we're getting a lot more features for this annual expense than we ever even could have under Civic Live, even if it was working. So we believe this is a worthwhile investment to fix what was really just a very low cost municipal website solution.
And thank you, Sean. And I did I don't know much about this, did a little research, and they do have an excellent reputation. So it sounds like a good judgment was used here. And I don't think it's smart to be penny wise and pound foolish. It's not a lot of money considering, all the people that use this and the importance of it. Did we have, just one last thing, did we have to pay anything to get out of a previous contract or anything? Or were we done with any terms on that contract with the previous host?
Well, we won't, I mean, the new website won't be ready. So we won't be able to turn off, we can't live without one. The new one won't be ready for at least, I think 9 months is the earliest that a build typically can occur. So we do need to sign the contract once we have budget approval, which is partly why we're coming to you now with a standalone appropriation. We are fortunate to have the availability of the ARPA funds, which allows us to do this versus the other option we've started with was proposing this in the budget, which I'd be putting forward in a month, and then we wouldn't really have the money until July 1st. So we just want to get the ball rolling. Yeah, so we will have our existing website for at least the next 9 months. But we would like to be in a position to put them on notice that we're going to be terminating the relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. And yeah, it's the last 5 years with the new website that we had was a struggle for a lot of people trying to use it, and I'm sure it was a struggle for this town staff to use too. And I know I brought this up probably several years ago that we really should start looking into maybe finding a part-time maybe or a tech person who can oversee things like the website, social media, and things like that. Like most businesses are getting people to do those types of things. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I'd like to see if we can try to create some kind of position somewhere in the future, maybe not this year, but if we could, or I feel like using town staff like Noelle is a waste of her talents. And, things like that should be used for people who, specialize just in technical stuff like that. And I did look at Hamden's website, and it was a lot easier to use than ours. So I think I still think we're a better town, but they have a better website right now, and we'll have a better website soon too. So but I appreciate you guys looking into this and doing it, and I will fully support this.
Mr. Veliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, in this, I see as part of this, there is a integration of an agenda and meeting management software. I mean, what is that? I mean, I know that trying to find minutes and those types of things with our current website is very difficult. Is that what that's supposed? Is this supposed to deal with that? What is that? What does that sort of add-on do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really, this is kind of checking two boxes that we referenced on the town manager's goals and objectives earlier. One being an overhaul of the website, and the other being transitioning to an agenda and minutes service, right? That allows us to go paperless when it comes to our agendas. Switching to tablets.
This is for us. This is
correct.
So this is for us. Okay, this isn't the minutes so much as it's to allow us to do sort of what we're planning for tablet. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we say agendas and minutes because they go hand in hand in the solution. So this really, just to take a step back, this is part of the reason that Civic Plus is really the far and away the most recommended. And we've interviewed a number of other companies, both website and agenda kind of e-clerk, e-packet solutions. Civic Plus is one of the only that had a very robust and refined and very integrated platform between the two. And as you'll see in that quote, we're getting discounts because you're going with the same vendor for both. But it also means it flows better through your website, and it's really integrated. And as we saw in the demo for the tech study group, and also demos that we've received, there's a lot of really great features. I won't go into all the details now, but that really connect. And I know it's a goal of the council, as we've referred to a number of times, to make all of the work of the government more accessible to the public and easier to follow along, easier to find the part in the meeting video that may be 4 hours long that is already bookmarked right to a video off of an agenda, so you can see when that item was discussed. Things like that will be integrated in the future to our website. That's something Civic Plus offers. But to the point, yes, it's starting with the council and the council's goal of going to packets through tablets. But Vin Massiana attended that meeting. He said the Board of Education would be very interested in this e-packet in the future as well. So I'm trying to manage expectations, of course, but I think the rollout will start with the council, but other commissions, boards and commissions that may be interested, particularly those that find themselves with very detailed and complex packets, maybe plans that are maybe a little easier to see on an electronic form that you can zoom in on and zoom out, and they maintain it. You can always go back and find archives automatically saved for you, so you don't have to keep all your old packets in paper. That's really half of this, and you'll notice the total annual cost is almost in the same ballpark. It's about $13,000 for the website versus the $7 or $8 we're paying now. But the other one is all new. We have no e-packet solution now, and that's about $12,000 a year too. But credit to Arnett and Noel, who've done a lot of the research on that. They really felt Civic Plus, even independently, was the best product. It also is so much more convenient that we can now integrate it with our new website. Fast forward a year from now, hopefully that's all a very seamless and much more publicly accessible way to provide information.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean, because I'm going back at those, looking at those numbers then. So although Councilman Milone mentioned the idea of 25,000 in the second year, it's really only about 13,000 for the web page in the second year. So if we're talking $8,000 to $10,000 for Civic Live versus Civic, going up, we're only talking a little bit more to go up to Civic Plus.
Correct.
Right. So it's not, but then on top of that, there's 12 or 13,000 for this document management. So it's not $7,000 or $8,000 or even 10 with maybe consultants up to 25. It's really up to 13,000 to cover what we already have. Now we're adding on to it this agenda management, which is going to be another 13,000, but it's something that we didn't have before, right?
Correct. That's starting from nothing. Exactly.
Okay. So what would that normally be? And then what, I guess my other question is going to be going back to what I thought this might have been, which is how minutes and agendas are already currently on our website. Is this new website going to fix that? I mean, trying to find like minutes from a meeting that was like a year ago is very, very difficult to go back to and find on the current page. So is that going to somehow be easier now with the new website? Hopefully
it's going to be easier. It's going to be easier going forward for sure. We're trying to manage expectations because obviously we have at least 10 or 15 years worth of digital packets going backwards that might take, almost like the town clerk does with historic document digitization. There may be a longer term project separate to start to incorporate some of those in the future. The quote does include, I think it's 7,500 documents coming over from our website. How many of those are going to be minutes and agendas remain to be seen. I think it would be good to have at least, if we can, at least a year's worth, maybe perfect world 2 years worth. But I can't promise now that we'll be able to seamlessly transition agendas and minutes from 5 or 6 years ago and have them accessible in the same way as the new things. Everything from a point going forward, though, will be under the new system where the packet is uploaded and included and then available on the website. Confidential executive session items can be easily accessible only to those who have access, and all of the things that were questions the tech study group brought up during the presentation. These folks have been doing this for a long time, and towns across the country are actually relatively similar when it comes to these things, Robert's Rules of Order and how we conduct our meetings. So a lot of this has been vetted through, and we've talked to a number of towns to make sure, especially those that have switched in the last couple of years, that they're very happy with their decision. And really universally, everyone's given glowing reviews. So we are confident. I think this is the right way to go.
And Sean, could I add about the subscription service?
Please.
This website includes a subscription service, which would allow members of the public to sign up so that anytime a document was posted, if they want all of the agendas for the Planning and Zoning Commission, or they want a document, anytime there's something that's posted that has the word bulky waste on it, they will get a notification and they can go and find it on the website, which is going to be an incredibly valuable tool for our residents because they just have to sign up and the information will come to them and they don't have to go searching for it. That's a pretty significant upgrade for us.
I would assume that would also save you some time if someone comes in and asks for that thing, whatever that is. Hey, what do you have on this? You could point them in that direction, right? You could at least search for that information and get that to them that way. So, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Well, and the other time saver, not to belabor this, but just one other item that we're excited about, that maybe I'm not sure, I'm promising it'll be ready on the first day, but we are subscribing to a feature. Again, it's kind of an a la carte menu, but one that the tech study group, I think, was very impressed by, was this sort of AI chatbot integration to their website, which I know sounds like a bit of a buzzword, but if you go to the City of Portland, Maine's website and play around with it, or a handful of others, you know, AI is pretty impressive and it's pretty powerful. And all it's really doing is gleaning from your website, the content you've already put there, the right answer to the question. So if someone says, is trash pickup delayed because of today's snowstorm? It writes back, yes, it is, because it has it here and it points you to the right website. Or if someone wants to know how to apply for the elderly tax credit program, it gives them the answer, types out the answer, and then gives them a link to where they can go to apply. And again, you can play with it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And the reports from Portland, Maine were a decrease. I want to say it was like 50 or 60% in the number of calls they got in a certain department. And the tech study group was very impressed by that. So again, another time saver for town staff, the public works department, who's inundated, and they'll be inundated tomorrow when they're returning calls for mailboxes and trash pickup. And if you can save half of those, you actually save an enormous amount of staff resources and staff time.
And for anyone listening, right, trash was delayed a day, right? So we're off one day now this week?
Trash is delayed this week for one day, every day. Correct.
Following the demo we had with the tech study group, I had a conversation with Mayor Lauren Garrett from Hamden, and they are absolutely thrilled with the product, the ease in which the switchover was, and so they highly recommended it. So with that, I think we can call for a vote. Please signify by raising your hand. It is unanimous by those present. Thank you. Item N is the approval of extension of lease agreement with Connecticut Beekeepers Association, Inc. at Boulder Knoll. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved, the town council approves resolution 01021324114. Be it resolved that the town council approves a 2-year successor lease agreement with the Connecticut Beekeepers Association, 49 Old Sherman Hill Road, Woodbury, Connecticut, for parcel B at 866 Boulder Road as presented. And be it further resolved that the town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this successor lease pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented and approved by the town attorney as to form and function.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Ms. Talbot, do you want to talk to us about bees?
Well, this one has created quite a buzz. Sorry, it's getting late. 2 years ago, both the Friends of Boulder Knoll Farm, who have done a wonderful job with the community farm on the property, and the Beekeepers Association had approached the town with this proposal. And 2 years ago, the town agreed, the council approved it. And this organization has been holding some really popular and educational and informative educational events. They've also found that the pollination of the flowers around the farm where the bees are has increased. So it's been a very positive relationship. It costs the town nothing, and we look for the council support to continue this for another 2 years. We have not heard of any issues, any injuries from bee stings yet, knock on wood.
Mr. Veliber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am happy to support this motion. I think this has been a great relationship with the beekeepers. I was proud to support it 2 years ago when it was suggested, and I think it's been also not only has that been a good addition to Boulder Knoll, but obviously Boulder Knoll has been a great steward of that property as well. So the symbiotic relationship of those two organizations has really been a boon to that property. So I am very happy to support this motion to continue their lease.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Anyone else? I know that even though she's not on camera, Ms. Schnitzer is smiling right now, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The Bees get a unanimous support of 8-0, those present. Thank you very much. Which brings us to the last item of new business. Item O is the discussion of the tax incentive application from the Bryad Group for a Homewood Suites in the TIF district. Mr. Martelli.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So we actually have Steve, who is the representative for the Bryad Group, the developer of the Homewood Suites, on the call this evening. So just for a little bit of background, we received a tax incentive request from the group a few months back, Steve, at this point, which we then put to the EDC, the Economic Development Commission, then referred it to the TIF Management Committee. So I'll just take a quick step back. I know we've gone over, most of everyone here knows about the TIF district, which is just north of 691. This property is looking to be constructed, or this building is looking to be constructed on lot 2, which is part of the Stonebridge Commons development. And so the developer is seeking a tax incentive from the town in order to help to facilitate that development. So with that, Steve, if you want to run through your group and a little bit of background for the council.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks to everybody for hearing me at this late hour. Just a quick update. If some of you aren't aware, we've been under contract and working with the Paul Bowman and his group for the better part of a year on our Homewood Suites project. We actually got our final approvals last night in front of the zoning board, and I'm very excited that we're this week hopefully going to get a loan approved for construction financing, which has been very, very challenging. One of the components that's been making it difficult for us and will continue to be difficult is that a lot of our cash flow, probably 10 to 15% of our cash flow is made up of real estate taxes. And as I've been developing hundreds of hotels in my 40-year career with Bryad and other hotel companies, the first 2 to 3 years of a new hotel project are the most challenging in terms of ramping up and being successful. And oftentimes we're able to get either tax abatements, tax incentives, some sort of tax step up, given that we're going to be around for a very, very long time. The early years are most important for us to ensure that we have a long-term viable project. So my ask is that if there is some ability to be able to give us some relief in the early years, and then at some point, in the 5 to 7 year, over a 5 to 7 year period, we could be paying, our full taxes based on the full assessed value. That would be the best for us and the viability of the project. Our principal stands behind the construction loan, and it's all equity, cash equity on his part, and he's trusts my judgment on these projects. But it's a lot of cash to tie up and a lot of his net worth. So that's my ask. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them about the particular project.
Mr. Scharf, thank you first of all for not only your patience, but for being here this evening and in doing this virtually as well as we all are tonight because of the the snowstorm. Questions for the, from the council for Mr. Scharf? Ms. Allard?
So I just wanted to clarify, it's my understanding that the project is able to move forward simply because of the TIF that's currently there. So there's already, is that correct?
We don't get any benefit from the TIF. There's a Paul Bowman's group who developed 105 acres has TIF credits or some benefit related to infrastructure and utility improvements. Our separate lot, our 4-acre lot, which I believe Andrew identified as lot number 2, does not have any benefits that go just specifically to the lot, to my understanding. That's my request for real estate taxes with respect to any improvements above ground, a building related to the 4 acres of land that we would build on.
Thank you. But it's also that lot wouldn't even be available. Correct me if I'm wrong. That lot would not be available if the TIF did not already exist. Is that correct?
I think I could take that. So so Dina, the TIF district allowed for the installation of the infrastructure that was necessary in order for this project to be able to be developed on that property. So the overall, I'll just take a step back and just give you a little bit more background. So the Stonebridge Commons development is a 110-acre master plan development. Of that, it's been subdivided into various lots. The developer, who Steve's referring to as Paul Bowman's group, so that's TriStar. TriStar received benefits from the town through the TIF program via what's known as a credit enhancement agreement. That credit enhancement agreement spoke to what the developer's responsibilities were, and in turn, once certain benchmarks were met, then the town has a financial commitment to pay back to the developer. So that's real simple. So the developer, in that sense being TriStar, got the benefits from the TIF program. Steve's group, who now has purchased or is in the process of purchasing lot 2, has not received any benefits from the TIF program for his project in particular. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay, because I'm happy to, if you have any, there's no bad question.
Mr. Mylone? Yep.
I will abstain from voting on this because we have been working on the design of that. We're not principals in this, but we've been working on the design. I think we've done the design work for the hotel project as well. So, but I did have 2 quick questions, which I don't really know the answers of, and I think they might be helpful or interesting. Has any other of the vertical or developer parcels gotten tax relief, or is this the first one that's asking for tax relief?
This is the first group that has submitted a tax incentive request.
And then Andrew, I noticed that the committee did not vote in favor of this. Did they express reasons why they didn't vote in favor of it at the time?
So yes, Jeff, do you want me to take this? I mean, I'm happy to, but you might do a better job with it.
Sure. So at the first TIF Management Committee meeting at which Mr. Scharf made his presentation, the committee had a discussion regarding the interplay between the TIF management plan, which has a specific provision in it that talks about a property owner who enters into a credit enhancement agreement not being eligible to receive a benefit from both a credit enhancement agreement and another town financial incentive on the same incremental value of the property. So the TIF management plan, while it expresses that decision, that policy, if you will, also says that other forms of incentives which the town is legally authorized to enter into, such as fixed assessment agreements and tax abatements, will be considered on a case-by-case basis. The credit enhancement agreement in this particular case has a key definition, which is the term project cost repayment start date. Okay. And that is the key definition in terms of the developer's ability to unlock and begin to receive the infrastructure reimbursements from TIF revenue. And as Andrew alluded to, there's thresholds before those payments can begin. And those thresholds are payments following achieving an assessed value of at least $50 million, of which at least $15 million has to be from the completion of commercial development. So the consensus at that first TIF management committee meeting was to have the other party to the credit enhancement agreement come to the TIF management committee's next meeting and weigh in as to whether it was okay with the notion of the town entering into a tax agreement that would, in essence, delay the achievement of the threshold under the CEA. So the developer's lawyer came to the TIF management committee meeting and said that they would prefer that the town not enter into a tax agreement because of the effect it would have on hitting the threshold and unlocking the commencement of the payments. So that's the reason why that's a reason why the TIF management committee voted the way they did. There also seemed to be a consensus that this was double dipping, even though the prospective purchaser of the parcels not a party to the CEA. The TIF management plan speaks in terms of not giving incentives on the same incremental value. That was the rationale.
Again, I those were questions. I won't offer any opinion because I think it's appropriate for me not to vote on this, and so I won't say anything else at this time.
So there is no motion presently on the table. This was entirely for discussion, and the council will take this up later on in executive session. So, any other questions for Mr. Scharf? Seeing none, thank you, sir. I certainly appreciate again your patience and for you being here this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Steve.
Finishes out new business, which brings us to item number 9, the town manager's report. Mr. Kimball.
Right. Oh, sorry. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and this will be a brief town manager's report, but let me get the right file up. Here you go. All right, close that. All right, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. For tonight, just starting off with an update from our public library. The library's had a full slate of winter programs for all ages. Of particular note, they held their second quarterly after-hours event on Friday, January 26th, featuring psychic medium Rebecca Ann Locicero with 105 attendees. And also the first 3 Saturday concerts have been very well attended. The next concert will be on Saturday, March 2nd, featuring Irish music from Liz McNichol. Also a collaboration between our library and our senior center. Our library director, Beth Piezzo, and our coordinator of senior services, Stephanie Thoreau, are co-facilitating a 6-week program entitled Powerful Tools for Caregivers at the library in the evening through March and early April. The first begins Thursday, March 7th at 5 p.m. And again, please check either the library website or the senior services website for more information. And please note the library will be closed on March 6th for Staff Professional Development Day. Speaking of the senior center is accepting appointments for the AARP income tax program, which runs through the end of March. Please contact the senior center for more details or schedule an appointment. And also a reminder, the filing period is currently open for the elderly and 100% disabled tax relief program for homeowners, which runs from February 1st to May 15th. Income thresholds, credit amounts are available on the town's website. And for more information, please contact the assessor's office. An update, I know I've been sending a few updates on grand list and revaluation. So just have a few notes on that here, as well as the tax assessment appeal deadline. The October 1, 23 grand list was officially filed at the end of January per state statute. State mandated revaluation process which represented the vast majority of the almost $1 billion increase in our grand list, from just over $3 billion to just under $4 billion. The real estate assessed values increased by 39% to $3.45 billion. Personal property increased by just under 10% to $211 million, and motor vehicle values fell by about 4.5% to $340 million. It's important to remember an increase in assessed property values does not necessarily mean an increase in property tax bills. Revaluation is a revenue neutral process intended to rebalance the grand list every 5 years to ensure that everyone is paying their fair share of the overall municipal tax burden. New mill rate established at the end of the budget process, which will be adopted by the town council, will be based on these higher values, and property owners will be able to estimate their taxes by applying the new mill rate to their new assessed property value. And as a reminder, property owners wishing to appeal the 2023 grand list real estate business personal property assessment or their 2022 supplemental motor vehicle assessment before the Board of Assessment Appeals must submit a written application to the board on or before February 20th. So that's just about 7 days away. These forms are available on our website and from the assessor's office. By state statute, appeal can only be heard if the request has been submitted on the prescribed form to the Cheshire Board of Assessment Appeals by February 20th. So it's a reminder for everybody. And please be sure, if you haven't already, to take a look at the economic development update in your packet. A lot of great updates, recent updates and new business openings are noted. But one we really wanted to highlight, and that's very exciting. We're thrilled to announce that a multi-year lease has been signed for the 6,800 square feet main area of the Waverly building. This includes restaurant, tavern, and banquet room in that facility. The ownership group is beginning extensive renovations, including replacing windows, roofing, HVAC equipment. This will open under the name Il Gusto Italian Restaurant, Wine and Bar. The group currently owns and operates Adriana's in New Haven, and they plan to open El Gusto in late summer. So it's great news for the Waverly. We're really excited. I know Andrew was thrilled to finally be able to announce this as well for this historic Cheshire institution, which folks will recall has been closed since May of 2019, so nearly 5 years. So great news there. Just an update that President's Day office hours, holiday hours will be closed on February 19th. And then a few upcoming council and committee meetings. The Sustainability Committee meets on February 21st, the Ordinance Committee on 27th, both at 7 p.m. Our regular meetings on March 12th. And as we announced earlier, the public hearing on the proposed budget will be on March 19th. You'll be receiving your town manager's proposed budget on March 10th. And that's all that we have for today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions for Mr. Kimball on the town manager's report? Mr. Walsh.
I just want to just give some kudos to Andrew on getting that Waverly property leased. He worked very hard on that for several years since he's been the economic development whatever is but no,
Guru. We'll just call him Guru.
Yeah. No, because I know that the landlords were insisting on long-term leases, and he was able to convince them to give a little shorter-term leases so that we can get that property rented, and I appreciate that. I think it's going to be another great restaurant here in town, and that property is finally going to get used the way it was originally supposed to be used and had been used for many years. So I want to thank Andrew for all that hard work he did.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Veliber.
Don, I want to just follow up on Don too. One of the things that hopefully that will be available too, as I was thinking about, is I know in talking to many civic organizations around town, they're always worried about where are we going to find a room for an event? Where are we going to have some? And since the Waverly is closed, that back room was used by a lot of groups for a lot of different events. And I'm hoping now, if this can get back up and moving, that will be an opportunity for many civic organizations to start utilizing that room again. I thought that the loss of that room was really a problem for many groups. So I just have a couple questions for Sean. First, I know we mentioned the tablets in your earlier report. We were talking about the website. I guess question is, where are we on that? Just out of curiosity. as far as moving in that direction? And do we have to,
Yep,
we don't
so
have to
we
wait
have,
for the website, right? We don't have to wait for the website to do that, right?
You don't have to wait for the website, but we do have to wait for the system to be installed, subscribed to, and ultimately trained on, so that we can have the new agendas converted over to an electronic version. So there's still going to be a little bit of a transition period. We do have the quote, and we have, I believe, I know Noel's on here too. I believe we've authorized moving forward, or we are doing so this week, for the purchase of the tablets. And once we have those in hand, we'll be able to, integrate the new system. The new system is web-based, so to be clear, you'll be able to do a lot of this, whether it's sort of through a browser type system, but on the back end, we need to be able to know how to upload documents, make sure they're in the right format, make sure documents for executive session are properly noticed and organized. And so there's a little bit of training that's involved in implementation, but there is a schedule. And now that we have approval to move forward, we're going to begin as early as tomorrow, honestly, talking to Civic Plus about signing the agreement and moving forward.
Okay. And are we going, do we decide on the platform we're using? What type of tablet we're using? Did we get that far?
I mean, I think, yeah, we didn't hear any real negative feedback with respect to the Microsoft Surface tablets that we had.
Perfect. Okay.
I think that's the one that everybody felt was most comfortable. We'll have a stylus and a attached keyboard. So that's the plan. When they arrive, we'll have to confirm once the order is placed. But I think it's the best, and it integrates best with our network and what our IT folks are most used to dealing with from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. I got a call from I got an email from a constituent, and I guess my question is, you see where we are with this, and maybe someone's already talked to you about this, but some concern about the state is now asking towns to board illegal immigrants, people who have illegally crossed into the country and are there maybe on either an asylum status, whatever they're in. My question is Cheshire being asked to do that? Is that because are we expected to cover that cost? I heard that the state is asking towns to do that, and I guess the question is where is that true? And if so, where are we with that, and what is our status on that?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. The Demas did release a statewide plan a few weeks back, and as part of their plan, they're anticipating that if let's say a busload of migrants were delivered to a particular town, that every town should have its own immediate rapid housing plan for as I understand it, for a period of, I think, 48 to 72 hours before the state would take over and provide housing with respect to whether it's in a hotel or long-term facility or whatever. We have a meeting, we're scheduling a meeting, myself, Chief Drive, Chief Kasner, and Michelle Picarillo have a meeting tentatively scheduled. I think it's either tomorrow or Thursday, to begin a discussion about amending our emergency operations plan. We have a housing plan as associated with an emergency event, a designated location, how supplies would be pulled together, cots, all of those things. We need to what we're going to do is revisit it through that lens and make sure that if we have to tweak anything in the event that sort of a situation presented itself, that we'd be prepared to do so. So we have an internal staff meeting again scheduled next few days, and we'll take it from there. And if there's any further updates, I'll be happy to pass them along.
Question: can we say no? I mean, I don't think that's necessarily fair for the state to be dropping people if the state wants to handle them, let the state handle them. Why are we expected to cover that cost?
Again, we're just, we're revisiting the emergency plan as though we were presented with a situation, say at 2 o'clock in the morning, unbeknownst to us, whether it came directly from, whether the bus, for instance, came from another state. I think we need to be prepared like we are with any other emergency situation to respond. But in terms of whether or not the town can say no, that's probably something to ask Attorney D'Onofrio or somebody else.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's ultimately my question. It's, this is another, I'm just curious if we're required to do this, I guess in theory, if they just drop them off in the middle of the night, we have to do something. But I guess my question is, is this an expense that we have to incur?
Well, I mean,
Again, yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
If you're asking me, I mean, like you said, it doesn't matter whether they're illegal or legal. If you have a busload of folks that show up in the middle of the night that are in need of shelter, then we have an obligation to provide temporary shelter. The question really becomes the capacity of the town in terms of the number of individuals that the town is able to house. There's not a specific statute that says that, you have to be able to handle a specific number of individuals. So, this is something that the legislature is going to have to deal with in the session that's begun, because right now we really are not prepared as a state.
Yep. All right, because my question is, because I guess it's one thing if it just shows up, but if the state asks us, hey, will you take a busload of, these immigrants? I guess the question is, can we say no? I mean, obviously, that if they're asking us, can we say no?
Right. I mean, there's no obligation to accept a referral from the state. That's different than, people showing up in the middle of the night.
No, right. And I guess that's where I'm going with it too. I mean, obviously, if they're just showing up, that's one thing. But obviously, again, if the state is coordinating them showing up in the middle of the night, that's not fair to the town either. So that's I guess that's ultimately my question. If the state is asking us to take people, do we have to take them? That's my concern, because I don't think it's fair that the town has to incur that cost when the state, is trying to find a place to put them.
Right.
Yeah, we weren't, just to be clear, we weren't we weren't being asked to prepare a plan for them to refer to us. It was to be prepared for the situation we were talking about, that if something were to come on a Saturday in the middle of the night, how would your town respond, as though it's a emergency event? And that's what we're taking up at the staff level. But no recommendations have been made. We haven't had the meeting yet.
Okay, thank you.
Seems like a good thing for the community to be prepared to handle if we need to. And I'd go so far as to say that I think our community would probably be disappointed in us as a council and as a town if we weren't able and kind of had a plan in place to handle this kind of emergency. So it's a good thing to be doing.
Well, I agree. If it's an emergency, that's one thing. It's another thing if the state forces that on us. That's my distinction.
Right. That doesn't sound like that's what's happening.
Any other questions for Mr. Kimball? Ms. Allard?
And I'm not seeing your manager's report in our package, and I was just wondering, there was so much information in there. Is there any way you can email a copy to us?
Yeah, we normally hand it out, and it's, candidly, it's often finalized the day of a council meeting. I can certainly email it out. We also post it on the website. But yes, I will email it, because we're obviously virtual. I didn't have the copies to hand out tonight, but I will make sure that we distribute electronically. And we can do that post every regular meeting going forward too. I think it's a good thing to have on hand, and we are trying to spread the word. So feel free. We also put it on Facebook, links to it, so that there's often a lot of good information that you can easily forward on to somebody if they're looking for it. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Sean. Moving on to item 10, reports of committees of the council, chairman's reports. I'll just kind of go around the little boxes as I have them in order. Mr. Jenks, you're first.
No report.
Mr. Wolf.
No report, sir.
Ms. Pearson.
No report.
Ms. Allard. Not until Yeah, not until next week or a couple weeks when you meet, right? And we
Right.
just added an item to your agenda tonight.
Yes,
so.
you did. I'll be a busy girl. No report.
And I have, as part of item 10, I have the referral of the consideration of the General Services Administrative Assistant reclassification. And that is now referred to the Personnel Committee for their review and recommendation. No miscellaneous. Item 11, appointments. I think that both Mr. Wolf and Mr. Veliber have a slew of appointments. Mr. Wolf, we'll start with you.
All right, here we go. This is to certify the town council today appoints Cynthia Braga to the beautification committee. This is a new appointment. Her term will be 2/13/24 to 1/31/26, and she is a Democrat. Second will be the appointment of Elizabeth Morin to the beautification committee. This is a renomination. Her term will be 2/13/24 to 1/31/26. She is a Democrat. We are appointing Matthew Hall to the Building Code Board of Appeals. This is to fill the vacancy of Richard Morris. The term is 2/13/24 to 1/31/26. He's a Democrat. We're appointing Barbara Ecke to the Chesprocott Health District. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/27, a Democrat. We are appointing Michael Mylone to the Chesprocott Health District. This is a new appointment, fills the vacancy of Sean Kimball, term 2/13/24 to 9/1/26, and this person is unaffiliated. We're appointing Derek Gromko to the Economic Development Committee. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Derek is a Democrat. We're appointing Daniel Knudsen to the Energy Committee, Commission, renomination, term 2/13/21 to 1/31/28. And Daniel is a Democrat. We're appointing Chris Smith to the Energy Commission. It's a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Chris is a Democrat. We're appointing Laura Monty to the Environment Committee. It's a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Laura is a Democrat. We are appointing Peter Prohaska to the Environment Committee. This is to fill the vacancy of Matt Abdifar. The term is 2/13/24 to 1/31/25. Peter is a Democrat. We are appointing Joseph Datillo to the Historic District Commission. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/29. Joe is a Democrat. We're appointing Francisco Perez to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. This is a new appointment, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Francisco is a Democrat. Rolling on, we are appointing Ellen Bartley to the Library Board. This is a new appointment, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Ellen is also a Democrat. We're appointing Teresa Graham to the Library Board. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. She's a Democrat. We are appointing Monique D'Onofrio to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. She's a Democrat. We're appointing Catherine Giampietro to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission, renomination, 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. She's a Democrat. We are appointing Yu Chung Torok to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission, renomination, 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. She's a Democrat. We are appointing Ilona Samoji to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission. This is a new appointment. Her term will be 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. She's a Democrat. We are renominating Corey Nash to the Public Safety Commission. His term is 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Corey is a Democrat. We are appointing Frank Vumbaka Jr. to the Public Safety Commission. This is a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Frank is a Democrat. We are appointing Jay Hirschman to the Public Safety Commission. This is a new appointment, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Jay is a Democrat. Jeffrey Nelson, we are appointing to the Retirement Board, new appointment, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/28. Jeffrey is a Democrat. We are appointing Thomas Scannell to the Water Pollution Control, Flood Erosion Control Commission as a renomination, 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. He's a Democrat. We are appointing Robert Bayrar. I apologize if I get that wrong.
Bear.
There.
To the Water Pollution Control, Flood Erosion Control Commission. It's a new appointment, 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. He's a Democrat. We are appointing Justin Rosadini to the Water Pollution Control and Flood Erosion Control Commission. New appointment, 2/13/24 to 1/31/27. He is an unaffiliated. We're appointing, Alexandra Miele to the Youth and Human Services Commission. As a renomination, 2/13/24 to 1/31/25. She's a Democrat. And finally, we are appointing Sherry Steckloff to the Youth and Human Services Commission. She's a renomination, term 2/13/24 to 1/31/26. She is a Democrat. That is all I have, sir.
Thank you. I will second those.
Thank you, Mr. Velber. And if you would read yours, please.
All right, thank you. These are all renominations. The renomination of William Bonaminio to the Beautification Committee. His term will be 2/13/24 through 1/31/26. He is a Republican. The appointment of the renomination of David Pelletier to the Economic Development Commission, term of office 2/13/24 through 1/31/28. He is also Republican. The reappointment of Jessica Fisher to the this is Beautification Committee as well. Renomination. Term 2/13/24 through 1/31/25. Okay. I think that's supposed to be 30. I think that's supposed to be 1/31/26, not 1/21/25. Jessica Feustel, Feustel, to the Beautification Commission. Also term of 2/13/24 through 1/31/26. The renomination of George Bowman to the Building Code Board of Appeals, term 2/13/24 through 1/31/28. The appointment of renomination of Tim Graver to the Inland Wetlands Commission to a term of 2/13/24 through 1/31/28. The renomination of Todd Dixon to the Library Board, term of 2/13/24 through 1/31/28. The renomination of Joyce Carklow to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission, 2/13/24 through 1/31/28. The renomination of Philip Belcher to the Youth and Human Services Commission, 2/13/24 through 1/31/26. And the appointment of Susan Pappas also to the Youth and Human Services Commission, 2/13/24 through 1/31/26.
Mr. Wolf, would you like to second those nominations, please?
I would love to second those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Right, and I know there's one other one, but we agreed that we would hold off on that one since the term doesn't expire until May.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. Thank you both. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you all. I skipped over the liaison reports, so we will do that now, and I'll go around the horn, starting with Mr. Veliber, who is the first one in my boxes.
Perfect. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Mr. Jenks?
No report.
Mr. Wolf?
No report.
Ms. Pearson?
Parks and Rec, just a few things. Members of the public came to talk about the need for soccer fields, needs of the dog park, proposal for a disc golf course that I guess John Galwalk and Mike Glidden went for a walk at Cheshire Park. So there's a possibility we will be seeing a plan for a disc golf course there. A new website for Parks and Rec was launched, and also John Galwalk met with, I believe.
Sorry, I'm sorry for you. Sorry.
Okay. And John Galwalk also walked with Town Manager Sean Kimball and Town Planner Mike Glidden in the Yankee Expressway property to explore working with NEMBA, the New England Mountain Biking Association, examining plans for possible bike trails in the Yankee Expressway property. And that was about it.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Ms. Allard?
Yes, I actually met with the Youth and Human Services Committee on February 7th. I was very impressed with everything that is offered throughout the town. A lot of it overlaps with Parks and Rec, like Fiona was discussing. A lot of it actually Sean already discussed in his report. But one thing that I did also want to mention is that through Parks and Rec, the summer camps program, spring programs registration is starting on March 1st for that. Michelle also discussed the growing need for those in the community who are shelter insecure, food insecure. So, it's a good thing for the community to kind of continue to contribute to those causes. There's a lot of other things going on. A spelling bee, March 25th at Dodd. There's just so much that I could probably spend another 2 hours talking about all of it. So I would just encourage those in the community to check out the websites and see everything that is available. With respect to the Public Safety Commission, nothing pressing there. They did submit their request for us to consider when we're discussing our budget, and there are a bunch of really great dedicated people who are looking forward to doing good things for our community.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Milone, we'll give you a pass for this month. Next month, we'll look forward to your report. And Mr. Walsh.
I do have a report because the beautification committee continues to meet and continues to do some pretty good things there. They had a very good discussion about the tree plantings that they want to do on South Main Street. They've narrowed it down to small, medium, and large size trees. I'm learning a lot about trees and what trees I want to put in my yard and what I don't want to put in my yard, and which trees we should be planting along South Main Street. So they're doing a lot of good work. They also approved the plantings at the Norton School, I believe it was. They went through the whole plan and they didn't have any issues with any of the plants. So they're continuing to move forward with the tree plan, and it's going to be kind of in unison with the business owners down there. So they're going to give them a choice of the trees, and it'll just beautify our town, especially South Main. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Moving on to the town attorney's report, Mr. D'Onofrio.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council communications. The only correspondence was in your packet. It is the report from the Historic District Commission from the newly reappointed Chairman Joseph DiTillo. So that is in your packets for your perusal. Which brings us to executive session. We have a couple items for executive session tonight: union negotiations and economic incentive application. It is our intention to not take any action other than adjournment when we come out of executive session. So I will accept a motion to go to executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Mr. Walsh, second. Is Mr. Jascott staying?